Chapter 896. Give it to me. When the demon emperor saw Chu Fengmian grab the battle demon's supremacy, his eyes turned incomparably cold. All of a sudden, he gathered his spiritual energy and attacked. A giant hand of spiritual energy condensed in front of Chu Fengmian and grabbed at the battle demon's supremacy. This move was almost silent. Even Chu Fengmian didn't notice it. However, Chu Fengmian had long expected the demon emperor to attack. Chu Feng had set up countless restrictions on the battle demon supremacy's body. As soon as the demon sovereign's hand reached out to grab him, the restrictions exploded and bounced him away. The giant hand of spiritual energy was instantly shattered. The power of the restriction even backfired on the demon emperor's body. What? You want to snatch him? How dare the Six Paths Demon Gate attack the Cloud Feather Heavenly Palace? Are you going to take her away without giving us an explanation? Chu Fengmian said coldly. The demon emperor wanted to snatch someone from Chu Fengmian's hands. He didn't put Chu Fengmian in his eyes at all. Chu Fengmian couldn't care less about the arrogance of the Six Paths Demon Supremacy in the 9 regions. However, if he wanted to be arrogant in front of Chu Fengmian, he would be courting death. The demon emperor's eyes revealed a thoughtful expression, as if he was slightly surprised by the failure of this move. He didn't expect that he would fail to snatch someone from Chu Fengmian's hands. Chu Fengmian's strength seemed to be stronger than he had imagined. After thinking for a short while, the demon emperor slowly opened his mouth. Chu Fengmian released the battle demon. I will take him away. Today's matter will be considered over. When the demon emperor spoke, he vaguely displayed the power in his body. Chu Fengmian could clearly feel that the demon emperor's power was even stronger than his. This made Chu Fengmian somewhat vigilant. Chu Fengmian had always been an invincible existence in the same realm. It could even be said that Chu Fengmian was strong enough to fight against an old ancestor in the heart-refining realm when he was in the life and death realm. In the immortal realm, he could easily defeat an emperor realm expert. In the 9 regions, this kind of strength could be called a monstrous figure. However, the demon emperor that he had encountered now was actually slightly stronger than Chu Fengmian in terms of strength. This made Chu Fengmian feel a little apprehensive. In terms of spiritual weapons, Chu Fengmian wouldn't lose to the demon emperor. Although the Six Paths Demon Supremacy had some spiritual weapons that could contend with the ancestral dragon sword, Chu Fengmian, the supremacy immortal weapon, it was impossible for the demon emperor to possess it. In a real battle of life and death, Chu Fengmian, the demon emperor, Chu Fengmian. Even so, he didn't want to fight the demon emperor, the demon supremacy of emperor. The demon emperors was of the immortal demon supremer, of course. A clone was emperors, a clone was of the Amon, heavenly feather at his lord come, kill leaves. Was it him? Are you trying to leave now that you're done being arrogant in the Cloud Feather Palace? Chu Fengmian's tone was impolite as he spoke coldly. How dare mere clone act so presumptuously in front of me? Get lost now, or I'll destroy your clone. Since they had already shed all pretense of cordiality, there was no point in saying any more pleasantries. Even if Chu Fengmian released the battle demon supremacy and killed the lone demon supremacy, the demon emperor still wouldn't let Chu Fengmian go. Moreover, the demon emperor had already ordered Chu Fengmian to be killed. At that time, the demon emperor didn't give Chu Fengmian any face. Today, Chu Fengmian didn't need to give the demon emperor any face. Since he was going to do it, he might as well do it thoroughly. He might as well kill the battle demon supremacy today and feed his essence blood to the divine tree. It would be enough for the divine tree to grow again and increase Chu Fengmian's strength. The demon emperor's strength might be higher than Chu Fengmian's, but Chu Fengmian cultivated the battle dragon technique, which was beyond the 9 domains technique. In addition, Chu Fengmian had a fortuitous encounter and created the 9 domains sword technique. In the future, Chu Fengmian might not be afraid of the demon emperor. Even if they shed all pretense of cordiality now, it wouldn't be a big deal. You're courting death. The demon emperor hadn't finished listening to Chu Fengmian's words. His face was filled with anger. and he couldn't hide the anger in his heart. As the Demon Emperor, the supreme ruler of the 6 demon sects, he was an existence that could call the wind and summon the rain in the 9 domains. How could he be ridiculed by a brat like this? As he spoke, the Demon Emperor made his move. Monstrous demon intent was released from his body. These waves of demonic will were much more terrifying than any demonic cultivator's demonic will Chu Fengmian had ever seen. These demonic wills transformed into countless martial skills, which bombarded Chu Fengmian at the same time. It forcibly approached Chu Fengmian's body. Countless martial techniques gathered together and transformed into a huge palm. It directly bombarded Chu Fengmian's chest. All of this happened in an instant. Before Chu Fengmian could react, the palm had already bombarded Chu Fengmian's chest. Crack! Chu Fengmian's chest suddenly shattered after being bombarded by the palm. Waves of demon intent directly drilled into Chu Fengmian's body. These demonic wills drilled into Chu Fengmian's body and began to destroy it. It constantly eroded Chu Fengmian's internal organs, as if it wanted to demonize Chu Fengmian's entire body. However, the moment Chu Fengmian felt the erosion of the demon intent, he immediately activated the power of the Battle Dragon technique. The ancient Battle Dragon's blood essence in Chu Fengmian's body boiled completely. Waves of golden dragon flame suddenly burned on Chu Fengmian's body. The dragon flame completely incinerated the demon intent that had entered Chu Fengmian's body. Now that Chu Fengmian possessed the Battle Dragon bloodline, he was least afraid of the erosion of the demon intent. It seems like you have obtained the supreme inheritance of the 6 demon sects. However, even if the 6th demon emperor is reborn, it's impossible for him to save you from my hands today. Chapter 897. The moment the demon emperor attacked, Chu Fengmian could feel the demonic intent that erupted from his body. The demon emperor's cultivation technique was definitely the supreme cultivation technique of the demon Tao. Among the 6 demon sects, only the supreme inheritances of the 6 demon sects could cultivate it. The demon emperor's spiritual energy was incomparably mysterious. It forcibly changed the form of his martial technique and caught Chu Fengmian off guard. Fortunately, Chu Fengmian was resilient enough. Otherwise, if it were any other warrior, they would have been seriously injured, if not killed. Even though you are powerful today, you are too naive to think that you can save someone from my hands with just this clone. I'll slay this battle demon supreme right in front of you. Chu Fengmian snorted coldly. He exerted force in his hand, and the battle demon supremacy, who was caught in his palm, suddenly screamed. Chu Fengmian's finger had already pierced into the battle demon supremacy's body. No matter how hard the battle demon supremacy struggled, it was useless. Boom! Following an explosion, the battle demon supremacy's body was torn apart in front of Chu Fengmian. A whirlpool appeared out of nowhere and sucked all of the battle demon supremacy's essence blood into the divine tree. Devouring the blood essence of an emperor was much more powerful than devouring the blood essence of 100 ancestors. After devouring the blood essence of the battle demon supremacy, the divine tree began to grow rapidly. It was almost twice its original size. From the height of a human, it grew to a height of 4 to 5 meters. Its trunk was also much thicker. As the divine tree grew, the power contained in Chu Fengmian's body also grew stronger. Chu Fengmian's aura was also rising steadily. The demon emperor gradually calmed down when he saw that Chu Fengmian had killed and devoured the battle demon supremacy. The demon emperor had gone crazy just now because he was blinded by anger. How could a true inheritor of the 6 demon sects be a brainless person? Now, 2 supremacies had died in Chu Fengmian's hands. Even if he were to fight with Chu Fengmian, it would be meaningless. At least now, if he wanted to kill Chu Fengmian would have to pay a huge price. The demon emperor was not willing to do something that would cause both sides to suffer. Very good. Chu Fengmian, you're the first person who has dared to kill 2 reverends of the 6th Tao Demon Gate. From today onwards, you will be hunted down by the 6th Tao Demon Gate. One day, I will make you kneel in front of me. The demon emperor's body suddenly disappeared from Cloud Feather Palace. Almost at the same time, this voice was left behind. Endless pursuit? Just nice. Remember to arrange a few more rulers. I just happen to need their blood essence to increase my strength. When Chu Fengyan heard the Devil Emperor's words, he said to the back of the Devil Emperor, "Oomph." In the depths of the void, the Demon Emperor only left behind a cold snort before his body disappeared. The strength of this Demon Emperor is truly unfathomable. To think that a mere clone would possess such strength. After exchanging blows with the Demon Emperor, Chu Fengyan knew that the Demon Emperor's strength was definitely not inferior to Chu Fengyan's. In fact, the Demon Emperor seemed to be slightly stronger than Chu Fengyan. Coupled with the fortuitous encounter that the Demon Emperor had, this person would definitely be Chu Fengyan's greatest enemy in the future. However, Chu Fengyan was not afraid. In terms of talent, Chu Fengyan had only been reborn for less than a year. He had truly cultivated the martial Tao for a year and had already reached such a level. The Demon Emperor had cultivated for nearly 30 years before he was on par with Chu Fengyan. As long as Chu Fengyan was given more time, Chu Fengyan believed that the Demon Emperor would be trampled under his feet one day. Chu Fengyan had returned in this era to ascend to the peak of the 9 regions and become the Emperor of the 9 regions. Any genius would be trampled under Chu Fengyan's feet. Elder Yun, how is your recovery? Chu Fengyan returned to Cloud Feather Palace and asked Elder Yun, who was still resting. Thank you for the spirit stones, young master. This old man has almost recovered. Elder Yun stood up and nodded. This time, Cloud Feather Palace was not attacked because Chu Fengyan had suddenly returned and killed the 6 Paths demonic sect's great ancestors outside. In just a few months, Chu Fengyan had grown to such a level. A few months ago, Chu Fengyan could at most contend with some great ancestors. He did not even have the power to fight back against an emperor. On the other hand, the current Chu Fengyan could easily defeat and kill a ruler. Elder Yun was extremely amazed that he could grow to such a level in just a few months. Right now, the aura on Old Yun's body was a lot more relaxed compared to before. However, Chu Fengyan also felt that it was a little difficult for Elder Yun to protect Cloud Feather Palace. After all, no matter how strong Elder Yun was, he was only an artifact spirit. For example, just now, 2 emperors and some great ancestors were enough to attack Cloud Feather Palace. Originally, Chu Fengyan thought that Cloud Feather Palace would be extremely safe in Oasis Heaven. However, it seemed that Chu Fengyan was not the only one who had obtained the treasures in Oasis Heaven. The Demon Emperor had obviously obtained a treasure in Oasis Heaven as well. Like Chu Fengyan, he could come and go as he pleased. This was not good news. Cloud Feather Palace was Chu Fengyan's last resort. It had to be extremely safe. Chu Fengyan thought for a moment and suddenly activated his spiritual energy. 100,000 spiritual swords flew out from his body. It was Chu Fengyan's dark, mysterious sword formation. The dark, mysterious sword formation flew out of Cloud Feather Palace and suddenly set up a supreme killing formation. Anyone who dared to approach Cloud Feather Palace without permission would be killed by the dark, mysterious sword formation. The dark, mysterious sword formation will be left in Cloud Feather Palace to protect it. Chu Fengyan said to Elder Yun. This was the decision Chu Fengyan made after much consideration. It was impossible for Chu Fengyan to return to the Cloud Feather Palace at any time. If he encountered any danger and was too busy to take care of it, the Cloud Feather Palace could very well be destroyed. Chu Fengyan knew that the 6 Paths demon sect would not easily attack Cloud Feather Palace. However, since there was this one time, there might be a second time. Chu Fengyan had to plan ahead and take precautions. Now that Chu Fengyan's strength was enough to kill an emperor, the dark, mysterious sword formation would not be of much use to him, even if it was left in his hands. It would be better for him to stay and guard the Cloud Feather Heavenly Palace. Chapter 898. Cloud Feather Palace was Chu Fengyan's last resort. He had to protect it well. Moreover, Cloud Feather Palace was located in the sinkhole sky. Chu Fengyan had explored less than 1/10,000th of the countless treasures in the sinkhole sky. As Chu Fengyan's strength increased, he could explore more treasures in the sinkhole sky. Without Cloud Feather Palace, Chu Fengmian would not be able to return to the sinkhole sky. The importance of Cloud Feather Palace was self-evident. It had to be protected well. Elder Yun, I have passed the control method of the Black Mysterious Sword Formation to you. Chu Fengmian passed the control method of the Black Mysterious Sword Formation to Elder Yun. Although Elder Yun was an artifact spirit, his control of spiritual power was not inferior to that of a true martial artist. It was even more mysterious than that of a true martial artist. Leaving the Black Mysterious Sword Formation in Elder Yun's hands would allow him to better protect Cloud Feather Palace. Sorry to trouble you, young master, Elder Yun said softly as he took the Black Mysterious Sword Formation. Chu Fengmian's strength was not what it used to be. He was no longer the little guy from before. Originally, Elder Yun himself had not expected that someone would actually come to attack Cloud Feather Palace, so he had been a little careless and had almost made a big mistake. Elder Yun, how is Yueli now? Chu Fengmian suddenly remembered that he did not see Han Yueli when he returned this time. However, Chu Fengmian could feel that Han Yueli's aura was still in Cloud Feather Palace. She was in the safest place in Cloud Feather Palace. Chu Fengmian was worried that if Han Yueli was cultivating, he would disturb her if he went there. Young master, don't worry. Miss Han is still accepting the inheritance of Cloud Feather Palace. Elder Yin smiled when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. Miss Han's aptitude is considered to be at the top of the 9 regions. However, the inheritance of Cloud Feather Palace is extremely vast. It will take at least a few months. She should be able to accept it in less than 3 months. Cloud Feather Palace was once a sect at the top of the 9 regions. The size of its inheritance was definitely beyond Chu Fengmian's imagination. Therefore, half a year's time was about right. All right, if Yueli comes out of seclusion, remember to tell me. Chu Fengmian nodded. The 9 regions genius tournament would begin in half a month's time. Chu Fengmian's current strength was many times stronger than the last time he had come to Omega Sky. This time, he happened to be exploring the sinkhole heaven again. He would definitely be able to obtain more treasures. Chu Fengmian's current realm no longer had a bottleneck. What he lacked was spiritual energy. The spiritual energy he needed was the spiritual energy contained in spirit stones. If Chu Fengmian wanted to increase his cultivation level by 1 level, he would need hundreds of millions of royal grade spirit stones to increase his cultivation level by 1 level. For Chu Fengmian, this was too slow. Even if Chu Fengmian could condense his divine veins, it was just a drop in the bucket. What he needed the most right now were those ancient treasures and some heavenly oddities. These things contained a huge amount of spiritual energy, which was enough to support Chu Fengmian's breakthrough. Just as Chu Fengmian was about to leave Cloud Feather Palace and head to Sinkhole Heaven, a voice suddenly rang out. Suddenly, from Chu Fengmian's spatial ring, a wave of spiritual energy suddenly rang out. Chu Fengmian opened the spatial ring, and a voice transmission jade talisman suddenly lit up. It was the voice of Yi Zhan, the brother and sister of the Yi clan whom he had met in the ancient Desolation City. Brother Chu, are you still in the ancient Desolation City? We have something to discuss. This was the only short sentence in the voice transmission jade talisman. The brother and sister of the Yi clan are looking for me? After listening to the voice transmission jade talisman, Chu Fengmian was a little surprised that the person who had come to look for him was the brother and sister of the Yi clan. Previously, he had met the brother and sister of the Yi clan in the ancient Desolation City, but he did not meet them in the Divine Tree Secret Realm. It seemed that the two of them had also come out of the Divine Tree Secret Realm. Anyway, there is still half a month before the 9 Regions Genius Tournament. I won't be able to explore the Sinkhole Heaven for long. If I find some treasures, it will be difficult to collect them. Why don't I go over and take a look? Chu Fengmian thought for a moment and replied with a voice transmission jade talisman. Go quickly. Then, Chu Fengmian's body returned to the 9 regions. The Cloud Feather Palace had teleportation arrays in many places in the 9 regions. Chu Fengmian arrived at a place not far from the ancient Desolation City. Chu Fengmian activated his spiritual power and directly broke the void to build a spatial tunnel. His current strength was no longer the same as before. It did not take long for his figure to return to the ancient Desolation City, and he continued to transform into Chu Bai's appearance. According to the voice transmission Jade Talisman's reply, he arrived at the tea house where Chu Fengmian had met the brother and sister of the Yi clan. Brother Chu is here. Seeing Chu Fengmian's arrival, the brother and sister of the Yi clan stood up and smiled. It seems that Brother Chu has obtained a great opportunity in the Divine Tree Secret Realm this time. The brother and sister of the Yi clan could also see at a glance that Chu Fengmian's realm had increased. He had broken through from the peak of the life and death realm to the immortal realm. Such a breakthrough was only possible because he had obtained a great opportunity. My luck is not bad. I obtained a lot of treasures. Chu Fengmian smiled casually. He did not intend to hide his realm, so it was not a big deal for the brother and sister of the Yi clan to see through it. Although the immortal realm was outstanding among the younger generation of martial artists, it was still not the peak. Even in the central region, it was not too eye-catching. Brother Chu actually broke through. This is great. Just nice, we have a helper. Yi smiled and said, Helper? What helper? Chu Fengmian was a little stunned by the words of the brother and sister of the Yi clan. He still did not understand the situation. Drink some tea first. Yi Zhan gave Yi a look and sat down in the tea house. After drinking a cup of tea, Yi Zhan carefully set up a soundproof restriction around them. Apart from the three of them, no one else could hear their conversation. Then, Yi Zhan looked at Chu Fengmian and went straight to the point. I wonder if Brother Chu has any thoughts of exploring the treasures. Treasures? Chu Fengmian looked at the brother and sister of the Yi clan with some doubt. However, he did not say anything and continued to wait for the brother and sister of the Yi clan to speak again. That's right, it's the treasure. In the Divine Tree Secret Realm, we killed a few martialists who wanted to kill us and obtained a treasure map from their bodies. Yi said. Then, she suddenly took out a treasure map from her hand. Chapter 899. This is the treasure map of the House of Storms. Yi said. Chu Fengmian glanced at the treasure map in Yi's hand. It was about the size of a palm and looked like an ordinary piece of brocade. However, upon closer inspection, there was an extremely special spiritual energy flowing through it. Although this spiritual energy was weak, it was extremely pure to the extreme. Even with Chu Fengmian's current strength, he could not condense such pure spiritual power. The House of Storms? The House of Storms of the one sea, 2 skies, and 4 palaces? Chu Fengmian was stunned and asked. In the current 9 domains, there were 2 skies and 4 palaces, which were the most famous treasure troves. The one sea was the void ocean. The 2 skies were the ruins of End Sky and the Treasure Sky. The 4 palaces were the House of Storms, the North Sea Palace, the Dragon Palace, and the Starry Palace. Chu Fengmian had been to the Void Ocean and the ruins of End Sky before. Chu Fengmian's ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword was obtained from the Void Ocean, and the Cloud Feather Palace was obtained from the ruins of End Sky. Chu Fengmian wasn't the only one in the 9 regions who was as lucky as him. For example, the ancient Dragon Emperor Cave Abode was only one of the treasure troves in the Void Ocean. There were a total of 6 treasure troves that were opened together with the ancient Dragon Emperor Cave Abode. In the history of the 9 domains, there were at least dozens of treasure troves that were born in the Void Ocean. It was the same for the ruins of End Sky. Chu Fengmian's exploration of the ruins of End Sky was less than 1%. However, the House of Storms was different from the Void Ocean and the ruins of End Sky. There was only one true treasure trove in the House of Storms. It was rumored that the former owner of the House of Storms was an itinerant cultivator who was once at the peak of the 9 domains. He was the Master Immortal Kanglin. He was known as the Master Immortal Kanglin's true strength was close to that of an immortal. He was truly invincible in that era. He was even more powerful than the Master of Sword Dao. However, such a powerful Master Immortal Kanglin suddenly disappeared from the 9 domains one day, leaving only the House of Storms. It was said that all of the Master Immortal Kanglin's treasures and his inheritance were left in the House of Storms. This also attracted countless warriors to go there. However, The House of Storms only opened once every 1,000 years. Every time it opened, 36 treasure maps would appear in the 9 regions. Only warriors who obtained the treasure map were qualified to enter the House of Storms. Each treasure map could only bring in 5 cultivators at most. Unexpectedly, the House of Storms was about to open this time. The House of Storms had appeared at least dozens of times. However, according to the rumors, the real treasure of the House of Storms had yet to appear. Therefore, every time the House of Storms appeared, it was extremely attractive to martial artists. The Yi siblings actually obtained the treasure map of the House of Storms. Although the treasure map of the House of Storms could not be considered an ultimate treasure, it had been opened dozens of times. True experts would naturally no longer believe in the treasure map of the House of Storms. Only some young ancient martial art practitioners would choose to enter and give it a try. After all, entering the House of Storms was quite dangerous. Some older ancient martial art practitioners would not be willing to risk their lives for an illusory treasure. However, in terms of value, this treasure map of the House of Storms should not be a problem to exchange for an ordinary heaven-grade spiritual weapon. It was fine that the Yi siblings obtained it, but they actually invited Chu Fengyan to explore it together. This made Chu Fengyan somewhat puzzled. "Brother Chu, you must be wondering why we invited you to explore together." Yizhan seemed to have seen through Chu Fengyan's thoughts and said with a smile, "It's actually very simple. With our strength, exploring the House of Storms is really a little too dangerous. Compared to other ancient martial art practitioners, Brother Chu is more trustworthy. Furthermore, the two of us don't want to join forces with the people from the 7 great sections. In the central region, there aren't many cultivators with sufficient strength other than the 7 great sections. Therefore, we thought of Brother Chu. We do not want to be killed and bartered. The treasure map is small, but it is not worth it to lose our lives. Not willing to join forces with the disciples of the 7 major sects?" Chu Fengyan glanced at the Yi siblings. The Yi siblings were obviously wealthy and respectable. Chu Fengyan could tell at a glance that their temperament was completely different from those ancient martial art practitioners who had climbed up the ranks. Originally, Chu Fengyan thought that the two of them should also be disciples of the 7 major sections. However, it seemed that there was more to it than met the eye. However, Chu Fengyan could tell that the Yi siblings were not lying to him. In Chu Fengyan's eyes, the Yi siblings were just 2 inexperienced children. "You too, aren't you afraid that I will kill you in barter?" Chu Fengyan said casually, but there was a hint of killing intent in his eyes. "Now that you have told me about this treasure map, aren't you afraid that I will kill you now and snatch this treasure map away?" "Of course not. Since Brother Chu dares to come here, it means that you believe in us. Naturally, we also believe in Brother Chu." Yizhan looked at Chu Fengyan and said with a smile. He transmitted a message to Chu Fengyan, and Chu Fengyan came over without hesitation. It meant that he believed in their performance. Otherwise, if the two of them had set up a trap, Chu Fengyan would have fallen into danger. Hearing Yizhan's words, Chu Fengyan could not help but smile. He did not expect this to be the case. He dared to come here alone, not because he believed in the Yi siblings, but because he felt that even if there was a trap, Chu Fengyan would not be afraid. With Chu Fengyan's current strength, even if Chu Fengyan fell into a trap, it was not certain who would kill who. Chu Fengyan only had a certain level of confidence in his strength. He did not expect to win the trust of the Yi siblings. However, this was good. Anyway, there was still half a month. Since he had nothing to do, he might as well take a trip to the House of Storms. Chu Fengyan had gone to the Void Sea and the Sinkhole Sky to obtain huge treasures. It seemed that Chu Fengyan's luck in this life was really good. The treasures of the House of Storms had never been obtained by other ancient martial art practitioners. This time, Chu Fengyan could also try his luck. "All right, let's take a look at the House of Storms. Half a month is enough," Chu Fengyan said with a smile. The House of Storms would only open for a total of 7 days. No matter how one looked at it, half a month was enough. "All right then. In that case, let's set off quickly." The treasure map of the House of Storms is already restless. It seems that it is about to open. Seeing that Chu Fengyan agreed without hesitation, the Yi siblings revealed smiles on their faces. They immediately turned into a ray of light and left the ancient desolation city. Chapter 900. Chu Fengmian and the Yi siblings left the ancient desolate city and directly broke through space, forming a spatial tunnel and flying towards the House of Storms. The strength of the Yi family brother and sister had definitely surpassed ordinary peak life and death realm martial artists. At the very least, they were stronger than some of the weaker old ancestors. The speed of the escape light was extremely fast. Chu Fengmian followed along with ease. Even before his breakthrough, Chu Fengmian could easily keep up with this kind of speed. Not to mention now, the three of them continued to travel through the void, passing through numerous cities in the central region. Finally, they arrived at a desolate area. The wilderness was a strange land in the central region. It was incomparably desolate. Apart from some strange beasts with ancient bloodlines, there was almost nothing else. The three of them gradually descended in the desolate wilderness. The House of Storms is in the wilderness. Chu Fengmian and the Yi siblings had just landed in the wilderness. Suddenly, Chu Fengmian felt a killing intent shrouding him. This killing intent was extremely conspicuous in the desolate wilderness. It almost didn't conceal anything as it enveloped him. The Yi siblings want to deal with me? Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered. At this moment, he almost attacked the Yi siblings beside him. But gradually, Chu Fengmian felt that the target of this killing intent wasn't him, but the Yi siblings beside him. Who is it? Yizhan abruptly shouted. He could also feel the undisguised killing intent coming from the young man. In the wilderness, the existence of this killing intent was clearly visible. It was enough to be recognized at a glance. Young Master Yi, how have you been? Suddenly, several figures walked out from the wilderness ahead. There were a total of 7 people, and almost all of them had the strength of an old ancestor. The strongest among them was an old ancestor who had reached the 6th step of the life and death steps, the heart-refining realm. 7 old ancestors. When they saw the strength of the 7 figures, the Yi clan brother and sister's faces trembled, especially when Yizhan's gaze fell on the leading cultivator. His eyes revealed a bit of coldness. Gongsun Fu, it's you? Gongsun Fu. Guyu Canyon's people? Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered as he sized up this group of ancestors. Since their surname was Gongsun, there was no need to guess their origins. Guyu Canyon disciple. Only the Guyu Canyon's disciples would have the surname Gongsun. The Gongsun family was one of the biggest families in the Guyu Canyon. Who would have thought that this time, it would be a group of Guyu Canyon disciples that came to kill him? This Yi clan brother and sister were actually related to the Gumun Canyon? Yizhan, it seems like you want to go to the House of Storms. Do you really think you obtained this treasure map? The middle-aged man named Gongsun Fu looked at Yizhan with a mocking expression. I intentionally let you obtain this treasure map in order to lure you over. I didn't expect you to really come over and walk right into my trap. In the ancient desolation city, we can't do anything to you. However, in the wildlands, even if we kill you, your master won't know. Gongsun Fu's voice was filled with cold killing intent. They had set up an ambush in the wildlands with absolute killing intent. They wanted to kill the Yi clan brother and sister. Damn it! Yizhan's face was extremely gloomy. He didn't expect this treasure map to be a trap. No, it should be a bait. A bait to lure them into this trap. Big brother, what do we do? Yi's face was also a little ugly. 7 ancestors came to attack them. Not to mention that they were only at the peak of the life and death realm. Even if they succeeded in breaking through, they might not be able to escape from this group of people. Kill our way out. These Gongsun family people dare to come and kill us. As long as we go back, we'll definitely tell our master and avenge us. Yizhan's face revealed a hint of madness. He looked at Chu Fengmian and slowly said, Brother Chu, it seems like we've implicated you this time. We'll take action in a while to block these people. When the time comes, just leave and don't worry about us. No worries. We'll deal with whatever comes our way. There's still a chance for us to turn the situation around. Chu Fengmian said coldly. Yizhan, I didn't expect you to still have the mood to care about others. Hearing Yizhan's words, Gongsun Fu revealed a mocking smile. He sized up Chu Fengmian and coldly snorted. An immortal realm guy. You too. Go deal with this brat first. Kill him directly, don't leave him alive. Yes. Two ancestors of the ancient Moon Valley walked out from behind Gong Sun Fu. Looking at Chu Fengmian, their faces revealed a hint of malevolence. One of the patriarchs said viciously, "Brat, you can only say that you're unlucky today to be with these two bastards from the Yi clan. Today's matter can't be spread out, so you'd better die." The moment the ancestor opened his mouth, he suddenly gathered spiritual energy and sent a palm towards Chu Fengmian. Under this palm, the surrounding light was directly devoured, turning into a pitch-black darkness. Chu Fengmian's body was instantly engulfed in this pitch-black darkness. Chu Fengmian glanced at the ancestor who attacked. Now that an ancestor attacked, Chu Fengmian didn't even put him in his eyes. Originally, Chu Fengmian didn't want to get involved in the internal affairs of the ancient Moon Valley. But now that they dared to attack Chu Fengmian, they must be tired of living. Courting death? Chu Fengmian flicked his sleeve, and a huge amount of spiritual energy shot out. The darkness in front of Chu Fengmian was directly shattered by this spiritual energy. This surge of spiritual energy continued to bombard the patriarch's body, causing his body to shatter. In just a breath's time, the ancestor who attacked Chu Fengmian was directly killed by Chu Fengmian. What's going on? What happened? The other ancestors were originally focused on the Yi clan siblings and didn't care about Chu Fengmian at all. However, the sudden burst of spiritual energy immediately attracted their attention. They had witnessed the scene of the patriarch being killed by Chu Fengmian with a single palm strike. Brother Chu? The Yi clan siblings were shocked when they saw Chu Fengmian attack. The ancestor who attacked Chu Fengmian just now was even stronger than Chu Fengmian in terms of realm, reaching the unblemished realm. But now he was actually killed in one move. Chapter 901. Ordinary ancestors who had transcended life and death were almost evenly matched in the same realm. Even in a battle of the same realm, it would take a long time to determine the winner. With this move, he instantly killed an ancestor whose realm was higher than Chu Fengmian's. This was simply beyond anyone's expectations. Damn it, this person killed Ancestor Shan Zong. This person is hiding his strength. Kill him first. After a brief moment of shock, 5 gazes looked at Chu Fengmian at the same time. Waves of killing intent immediately enveloped him. The other 5 ancestors, almost in an instant, activated their spiritual power and suddenly attacked Chu Fengmian. The 5 ancestors attacked together and joined forces, turning into an incomparably huge Guyu in the air. This Guyu rushed towards Chu Fengmian and attacked from the air. Big Brother Chu, be careful. This is the secret technique of the Guyu Canyon. It's extremely powerful and can't be resisted head-on. Yi saw this scene and shouted loudly, wanting to remind Chu Fengmian. However, before she could finish her words, this Guyu was directly grabbed by Chu Fengmian in the next moment. Chu Fengmian grabbed this Guyu with his bare hands. As Chu Fengmian exerted force, this Guyu was crushed in Chu Fengmian's palm. Heavens, this is still a human. Guyu, it was crushed by someone's bare hands? The 5 ancestors were so shocked that they couldn't close their mouths. With the 5 of them working together and using this Guyu's secret technique, even an ordinary emperor wouldn't dare to face it head-on. They would need to retreat and avoid the sharpness of it. But now, Chu Fengmian was actually using his bare hands to easily block this Guyu and even crush it with his bare hands. This kind of physical body was simply terrifying. Even if they had heard of some martial artists with extreme physical bodies, they might not be able to do such a crazy thing. Kid, who exactly are you? At this point, the ancestors of the Guyu Canyon could also see how terrifying Chu Fengmian's strength was. Although Chu Fengmian was only in the immortal realm, it was enough to crush the Guyu. This kind of strength was no different from an emperor. An immortal realm old ancestor actually possessed strength comparable to an emperor. Only the core disciples of the 7 great sects would be able to achieve such a feat. You're all dead anyway. There's no need for you to know my name. Chu Fengmian said coldly. In Chu Fengmian's eyes, this group of ancient Moon Canyon's ancestors were no different from dead people. Chu Fengmian was too lazy to waste his breath on a bunch of dead people. You, Hearing Chu Feng Mian's words, the group of ancient Moon Canyon's old ancestors were furious. They were all patriarchs of the 7 great sects and had lofty statuses. When had they ever been looked down upon like this? Brat, don't be so arrogant. Don't think that you can be impudent just because your physical body is strong. Our Guyu Canyon has 10,000 secret techniques that could destroy you. An ancestor shouted at Chu Fengyan. Wheel of Destiny. The old ancestor spat out a mouthful of blood essence, which condensed into a huge wheel in the air. It was the same for the remaining patriarchs. They spat out countless amounts of blood essence. In the blood mist, an ancient wheel condensed and slowly rotated. Every time it rotated, it would crush the surrounding space. This is Guyu Canyon's supreme, forbidden technique, Wheel of Heaven and Earth. You actually disregarded the sect's rules and used a forbidden technique outside. Yi Zhan saw the Wheel of Destiny condensing, and his face was filled with fear as he shouted loudly. What forbidden technique? You're all going to die today anyway. So what if you use a forbidden technique? Brat, go to hell. An ancient Moon Canyon's old ancestor snorted and controlled the huge wheel to descend from the sky. It forcefully crushed Chu Fengyan's body. Along the way, the surrounding space and spiritual energy were completely crushed. It even closed in on Chu Fengyan's body and crushed it. Forbidden technique? It's just an illusion of the Wheel of Destiny. If the real Wheel of Destiny appeared, I might be a little afraid. But this is just an illusion. Chu Fengyan saw the Wheel of Destiny approaching, but his expression didn't change. Only a surge of spiritual energy gradually condensed in Chu Fengyan's palm. Then, a claw suddenly broke through the air. Battle Dragon Claw. This surge of spiritual energy instantly transformed into an incomparably huge Battle Dragon Claw and directly bombarded the Wheel of Destiny. Bang! Under countless gazes of disbelief, the Wheel of Destiny was directly shattered by the Battle Dragon Claw and gradually disappeared from the sky. Forget it. I don't have the mood to continue entangling with you. All of you die for me. Chu Fengyan laughed loudly. The spiritual energy in his body was fully released. This incomparably huge Battle Dragon Claw swept through everything. Those 5 patriarchs couldn't resist at all and were forcibly torn apart by the Battle Dragon Claw. Boom, boom, boom. After the continuous explosions in the air ended, only a few clouds of blood mist were left in the air. Those ancient Moon Canyon's patriarchs were mercilessly killed by Chu Fengyan's Battle Dragon Claw. At the scene, only Gongsun Fu was left. Gongsun Fu and the Yi family siblings were dumbfounded by the scene in front of them. Especially Gongsun Fu's face. It was simply ugly to the extreme. Originally, they had planned to kill the Yi siblings. It was almost an easy task, as if it was a done deal. But no matter how much they thought about it, they didn't expect that Chu Fengyan would appear. Who exactly are you? Do you know the consequences of going against our ancient Moon Canyon? Gongsun Fu looked at Chu Fengyan and said proudly, Today's matter is our ancient Moon Canyon's internal affairs. It has nothing to do with you, so please don't continue to interfere. In Gongsun Fu's words, there was already a faint hint of threat. This threat, in Chu Fengyan's ears, was incomparably laughable. Who do I want to kill? Do you people of the ancient Moon Canyon have the qualifications to interfere? Chu Fengyan said coldly. Kneel down and cripple your own cultivation, then I'll spare your life. You're going too far. Gongsun Fu heard Chu Fengyan's words and roared crazily. I'm a member of the Gongsun family. If you dare to kill me, you'll definitely suffer revenge. Kneeling down and crippling his own cultivation was no different from asking him to die. Going too far? I'm going too far. So what can you do? Chu Fengyan heard this weak threat and said disdainfully. Chapter 902. The Gongsun family? Chu Fengyan would destroy the 7 great sects sooner or later. What can mere Gongsun family do? Die! Chu Fengyan sneered, then waved his hand and killed Gongsun Fu with a single blow. He didn't give him any chance to escape. I'll leave his corpse to you. Chu Fengyan looked at Gongsun Fu's corpse and tossed it to the Yi siblings. Brother Chu, It was only now that the Yi siblings finally reacted. They looked at Chu Fengmian with a somewhat sluggish expression. In their opinion, Chu Fengmian should be a cultivator with decent aptitude. They didn't expect Chu Fengmian's strength to be so terrifying. Countless ancestors of the ancient Moon Canyon attacked together, but all of them died at Chu Fengmian's hands. This kind of strength was absolutely not something that an unknown martial artist could achieve. Furthermore, Chu Fengmian had addressed himself as Chu Mao. As such, Chu Fengmian's identity had been mostly guessed. "I am Chu Fengmian," Chu Fengmian said casually. He only wanted to sneak into the Divine Tree secret realm to hide his identity. Now that Chu Fengmian had broken through, there was no need for him to continue hiding his identity. As expected, hearing that Chu Fengmian had revealed his identity, the Yi siblings weren't too surprised. They had already vaguely guessed Chu Fengmian's identity. Now that Chu Fengmian admitted it, their guess was confirmed. "Since Brother Chu doesn't want to hide it, we don't have to. We are actually disciples of the ancient Moon Canyon." Yizhan looked at Chu Fengmian and said slowly. There was no need for him to say it. Chu Fengmian could tell from the conversation between Yizhan and Gongsun Fu. The Yi siblings were indeed disciples of the ancient Moon Canyon. They seemed to have a grudge against Gongsun Fu. "The two of us sneaked out this time around. Who would have thought that we would be discovered by those from the Gongsun clan? And we nearly died at their hands." Yizhan looked at Chu Fengmian and rejoiced. Fortunately, Chu Fengmian had concealed his strength, allowing them to avert disaster this time. Or else, the two of them might really have died at the hands of the ancient Moon Canyon's old ancestors. "Thank you for your help this time, Brother Chu. Without your help, the two of us would have died without a doubt. Dying at the hands of Brother Chu is much better than dying at the hands of those bastards from the Gongsun clan," Brother Chu said. Yizhan looked at Chu Fengmian, his face paled. "Oh, who said I'm going to kill you too?" Chu Fengmian laughed when he heard Yizhan Fengmian. It seemed that Chu Fengmian had already been rumored to be a murderous devil. Indeed, Chu Fengmian had great enmity with the 7 great sects, but the people he killed were all people who had provoked Chu Fengmian. As long as they didn't offend him, he wouldn't kill the innocent. At least, the Yi siblings wanted to help Chu Fengmian escape when he was in danger. For this reason alone, Chu Fengmian would not kill the two of them. "I may have killed countless people, but I've never killed the innocent. Don't worry." Chu Fengmian smiled. The Yi siblings heaved a sigh of relief when they heard Chu Fengmian's words. The seriousness on their faces gradually disappeared. At first, they were worried that Chu Fengmian would reveal his identity to kill the two of them. But now, it seemed that they were worried for nothing. At least, Chu Fengmian was very different from the murderous demon in the rumors. "In that case, we have to thank Brother Chu. The two of us owe Brother Chu our lives. In the future, if Brother Chu has any requests, the two of us will not hesitate to go through water and tread on fire." "It's fine. What plans do you two have? Are you going to the House of Storms?" Chu Fengmian looked at the Yi siblings and slowly opened his mouth to speak. "No. Since the Gongsun family knows that we left, they won't let us go. It's too dangerous to go to the House of Storms." Yizhan shook his head as a trace of anger surfaced in his eyes. "The Gongsun family actually dared to ambush the two of us. When we return to the Guyu Canyon, we must make the Gongsun family pay for this." After he finished speaking, Yizhan opened his spatial ring. With a wave of his hand, Gongsun Fu's corpse on the ground was stored into the spatial ring. "We'll return to the ancient Moon Canyon now. If you have any requests, you can let us know through the Jade Talisman." "All right." Just as Yizhan was about to turn and leave, he suddenly turned his head and handed a treasure map to Chu Fengmian. It was the treasure map of the House of Storms. "We definitely can't go to the House of Storms this time. Since Brother Chu wants to go, I'll give this treasure map to you." "All right." Chu Fengmian took the treasure map and didn't refuse. It just so happened that he also wanted to take a look at the House of Storms. If he went with the Yi siblings, it would be somewhat of a hindrance to Chu Fengmian. After all, if Chu Fengmian went alone, it would be easier for him to move around. He wouldn't have to worry about exposing too many of his trump cards. Letting Chu Fengmian go alone was exactly what he wanted. After all, compared to the lives of the Yi clan's siblings, the value of this treasure map was insignificant. "Brother Chu, take care." Yi Zhan's figure moved, transforming into a streak of light as he prepared to leave. "Goodbye, Brother Chu." Yi chuckled and turned into a streak of light as well. Chu Fengmian put away the map, and with a move of his body, he turned into a streak of light and continued to fly in another direction. The treasure map pointed to the depths of the wildlands. Chu Fengmian followed the map and flew. In the wildlands, Chu Fengmian also felt the sudden arrival of several terrifying auras. Now, there were also a few experts who had come to the wildlands. There was only one possibility for these experts to appear. They were here for the House of Storms. Chu Fengmian flew all the way until he arrived at a valley and slowly landed. There were already many cultivators in the valley. At a glance, there were dozens of them. Chapter 903. Most of the martial artists gathered in front of the valley were old ancestors who had surpassed the life and death realm. There were dangers everywhere in the House of Storms. Even some of the old ancestors were in danger of dying today. Ordinary life and death realm martial artists wouldn't dare to enter rashly even if they had the chance. Chu Fengmian could tell at a glance that the rare life and death realm martial artists were at least at the peak of the life and death realm. Their strength was at least on par with ordinary patriarchs. The people from the 7 great sects are indeed here to meddle. Chu Fengmian could tell at a glance that half of the martial artists present were disciples of the 7 great sections. The current 7 great sects were even more powerful than 10,000 years ago. Most of the old ancestors who had surpassed the life and death realm in the 9 regions were disciples of the 7 great sections. It wasn't surprising that the 7 great sects could obtain more than half of the treasure map of the House of Storms. There are actually 4 sovereigns here. Chu Fengmian glanced around. There was one thing that surprised Chu Fengmian. The House of Storms had actually attracted 4 sovereigns. For Chu Fengmian, ordinary old ancestors were no longer worthy of his attention. Only those who were of a different race, such as the Demon Emperor, could make Chu Fengmian extremely fearful. However, sovereigns were not like those great ancestors. Back in the Heavenly Feather Divine region, Chu Fengmian had been able to easily kill Supremacy Lone Demon and Supremacy Devil. To a large extent, it was because of the suppression from the Cloud Feather Heavenly Palace. Therefore, Chu Fengmian could easily win. If it were outside, although Chu Fengmian's strength wasn't considered weak among the sovereigns, it wouldn't be that easy to kill one. Chu Fengmian had to treat any sovereign seriously. These 4 should be the sovereigns of the Tianjin sect, Ancient Moon Valley, Medicine King Valley, and Desolate Ancient Sect. With a single glance, Chu Fengmian was able to discern which faction the cultivation methods of the 4 of them came from. Chu Fengmian's spiritual consciousness continued to quietly scan the martial artists present. Suddenly, Chu Fengmian found a few figures in the sky. There were a total of 5 martial artists. The leader of the group was a woman with a graceful figure. It's her? She's actually going to the House of Storms as well. Seeing this woman's figure, Chu Fengmian's heart revealed a bit of surprise. This woman was none other than Luo Shi, the 6 Paths Demon Gate's supremacy, whom Chu Fengmian had met twice before. The last time Chu Fengmian met Luo, she was outside the Ningzhou ancient city. It was because of Luo Shi that Chu Fengmian learned about the reappearance of the 6 Paths Demon Gate. He did not expect to run into Chu Fengmian again outside the House of Storms. This was really fate. The 6 demonic gates are interested in the treasures of the House of Storms. Interesting. Chu Fengmian sneered. Ever since Chu Fengmian had killed the 2 reverends of the 6 Paths Demon Sect, the relationship between Chu Fengmian and the 6 Paths Demon Sect had become hostile. Luo, she was clearly here for the treasures of the House of Storms. It would be good for Chu Fengmian if she could ruin the plans of the 6 demonic gates. Just as Chu Fengmian was thinking, more and more warriors had gathered in the valley. There were about 100 of them. This treasure map of the House of Storms could bring 5 warriors into the House of Storms. Therefore, the warriors who obtained the treasure map would choose to join forces with other warriors to search for the treasures. Joining forces with other warriors was a good way to reduce the risk. However, Chu Fengmian was still used to acting alone. He was freer alone and did not have to worry about exposing his trump card. It was easier to search for the treasures alone. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Suddenly, the spiritual energy on the treasure map in Chu Fengyan's hand began to expand. With a loud bang, an ancient bronze door suddenly appeared in the valley. This ancient bronze door had always been hidden in the depths of the void. It would only appear once every 1,000 years when it opened. This is the door of the House of Storms. Chu Fengyan's eyes were fixated on the bronze door. For Chu Fengyan, this was the first time he saw the door of the House of Storms. It was said that the creator of the House of Storms was a terrifying expert who surpassed the master of Sword Dao. Now that he saw the door of the House of Storms, Chu Fengyan could feel how terrifying it was. If one tried to barge through the door, death would be the only outcome. At least, even the immortal realm experts on the 9th step of the life and death steps would die. Only warriors who obtained the treasure map could enter. Boom, boom, boom. A series of deafening booms could be heard. Under the gazes of countless people, the bronze door slowly opened. Looking in from the outside, the entire interior of the House of Storms was gray. It was impossible to see what was inside clearly from the outside. Let's go. The warriors who were waiting in the valley turned into streaks of light and flew toward the bronze door. The moment the warriors with the treasure map approached the bronze door, a wave of spiritual energy was emitted from the treasure map and enveloped them. As long as a warrior was enveloped by this spiritual energy, he would be able to directly enter the treasure map. However, there were also some warriors who wanted to take advantage of the situation. Among them, a life and death realm warrior who did not have the treasure map also turned into a streak of light and tried to enter. However, the moment he approached the bronze door, a rainbow-colored light suddenly appeared. The life and death realm warrior was killed on the spot. Intruders without the treasure map die. An ancient voice came from behind the bronze door. This voice was ancient but incomparably majestic. When people heard this voice, they did not dare to challenge it. Those warriors who wanted to try their luck hurriedly retreated when they saw this scene. They did not dare to try it again. They could only leave with their tails between their legs. Whoosh! In the sky, Luo, Shi, and the other 4 ancestors of the 6th-path demon gate also turned into streaks of light and entered the bronze door. It's the people of the 6th-path demon gate. Seeing the dazzling red streaks of light, many people noticed the presence of Luo, Shi, and the others. However, he could only allow them to enter. Chu Fengyan had been waiting until now. When he felt that the time was right, he also turned into a streak of light and flew into the bronze door. The large bronze door remained open for less than an hour before it slowly closed and disappeared from the valley. Chapter 904. As soon as Chu Fengyan flew through the bronze door, the world spun around him. His body accelerated rapidly, as if he was about to be teleported to another place. This rapid acceleration was enough to tear some patriarchs apart. The spiritual power emanating from the treasure map resisted all the tearing force. It was safe and sound. After 3 breaths, this acceleration gradually came to a stop. What entered one's eyes was a peculiar mountain valley. Sure enough, the House of Storms is in a unique world, just like the sinkhole sky. Chu Fengyan was already familiar with the scene in front of him. When he first entered the sinkhole sky, it was somewhat similar to the scene in front of him. However, compared to the sinkhole sky, the House of Storms looked smaller, but it was still about 1/3 the size of the sinkhole continent. Given its size, it would not be easy for Chu Fengyan to search through it within 7 days, even with his current speed. Let's go take a look first. Chu Fengyan stood where he was and thought for a moment. Then, he slowly flew through the House of Storms. Chu Fengyan's escape, light, was not fast. His goal was not to hurry, but to see the situation in the House of Storms. The entirety of the House of Storms was a mountain range. Within this mountain range, there are many dangerous places. These dangerous places were extremely cold. Even patriarchs would freeze to death if they entered. Some were scorching hot seas of fire that could not be approached. Some were bottomless abysses. Once one fell into them, there was no way out. Of course, Chu Fengyan did not come here for these dangerous places. He came here for the true treasures in the House of Storms. It was said that all the treasures in the House of Storms were in a palace. However, there were many different opinions about the existence of this palace. However, in the previous dozens of explorations, The cultivators of the 9 regions had practically turned the entire House of Storms upside down. However, they still could not find the legendary palace. Therefore, most of the warriors did not believe this rumor anymore. Chu Fengmian was careful about this rumor. There had always been such a rumor in the ancient records of the House of Storms. This meant that this rumor was not made up in recent times. There was no smoke without fire. Since this rumor had been passed down together with the House of Storms, there should be some truth to it. He just didn't know where the real treasure was hidden. Of course, other than the rumored true treasures of the House of Storms, there were also some smaller treasures in the House of Storms, such as some sacred medicines, precious items, and so on. Along the way, Chu Fengmian had already encountered quite a number of sacred medicines. However, these sacred medicines had limited effects on Chu Fengmian. However, even a mosquito's leg was still meat. Chu Fengmian naturally accepted all of it without any hesitation. Only a little over 100 martial art practitioners had entered the House of Storms. In this vast House of Storms, it was already considered a rare sight. All the ancient martial art practitioners who entered the House of Storms would be transported to another place by the Force just now. Therefore, even though the probability of martial artists encountering them was small, it still happened from time to time. Oh, he was actually alone, Patriarch? He's only in the immortality realm, and yet he's acting alone. Since he could enter the House of Storms, this person must have a lot of wealth. Not far away, 3 martial art practitioners were walking together. Clearly, they had already contacted each other through the Jade Talisman when they arrived at the House of Storms. They quickly gathered together. There were countless dangers in the House of Storms. Moreover, if one were to act alone, it was very likely that he would be hunted down by other martial art practitioners. After all, killing a patriarch was no less than obtaining a small treasure. In the eyes of many martial art practitioners, someone like Chu Fengmian, who was acting alone, was simply a piece of fat meat. Forget it. Let's kill him first. After we kill him, we'll split his wealth equally. Another martialist sneered as he spoke. All of a sudden, the figures of the 3 people changed continuously and flew toward Chu Fengmian. The person who has a death wish is here. Chu Fengmian's eyes flashed. How could the conversation of these 3 people escape Chu Fengmian's ears? The moment they approached, Chu Fengmian sensed their existence. 3 unblemished realm patriarchs. It was just that Chu Fengmian didn't want to pay attention to them. Now it seemed that they had come to die. Boy, hand over your empty ring and your spiritual weapon. A martial art practitioner looked at Chu Fengmian and said proudly, "Be a good boy and be sensible. We can spare your life and let you leave alive." 3 unblemished realm patriarchs against an immortality realm patriarch. The 3 of them were originally in a higher realm than Chu Fengmian. In addition, it was 3 against 1. No matter how one looked at it, Chu Fengmian had no hope of resisting. Unfortunately, the person they met was Chu Fengmian. This is what I should say. Kneel, hand over your empty ring, and then get lost. Chu Fengmian said without raising his head. These 3 patriarchs didn't even interest Chu Fengmian in fighting. Chu Fengmian didn't care about their wealth at all. If they handed over their empty rings and knelt, Chu Fengmian could still spare their lives. The 3 patriarchs were stunned. Then they burst into laughter. Boy, who do you think you are? How dare you be so arrogant when you're about to die? Forget it. Don't talk nonsense with this person. Just kill him. After killing him, we'll look for the other treasures. As soon as the 3 patriarchs finished speaking, their eyes revealed some killing intent. Die. Golden light shot out from the bodies of the 3 patriarchs, and they suddenly grew in size. It was as if 3 spiritual power mountains had merged into one and directly suppressed Chu Fengmian. A joint attack technique? When Chu Fengmian saw the 3 patriarchs attack, he could tell that they should have cultivated a joint attack technique. The strength of the 3 patriarchs' joint attack was far beyond the 3 of them. Unless an Emperor Realm expert made a move now, it was possible to contend against them. Otherwise, even a patriarch in the heart-refining realm would be directly suppressed by them and couldn't resist. It's been a long time since I've met such an arrogant boy. Let's suppress this boy first. Then we'll torture him and see if he can still be so arrogant. One of the patriarchs laughed sinisterly. The three of you still want to suppress me? You really don't know how strong you are. What joint attack technique? Break all of them. Chu Fengmian's eyes were cold. These three old men were simply courting death. Chapter 905. Initially, Chu Fengmian was too lazy to argue with the three old fellows. However, since the three old fellows were just making a move, Chu Fengmian would fulfill their wish. Boom! All of a sudden, Chu Fengmian made his move. He struck out with a palm strike at the three patriarchs. The sudden palm strike instantly shattered the combined attack that the three patriarchs had prepared. The three patriarchs were sent flying almost at the same time. The moment they were sent flying in the air, their eyes were filled with disbelief. What's going on? How can this fella's strength be so terrifying? One of the great ancestors shouted in disbelief. If the three of them worked together, only a ruler would be able to break through their joint attack. Even if a great ancestor in the Tempered Heart realm came, he would have to retreat. Yet at that moment, Chu Fengmian was actually able to easily neutralize and shatter it. You talk too much. Die. Chu Fengmian sneered. Without giving the three great ancestors any chance, he made a prompt decision and suddenly struck out with his palm again. It turned into an enormous war dragon's claw in the air and directly enveloped them. Instantly, the chests of the three great ancestors were under great pressure. In front of the war dragon's claw, their chests were directly shattered. In Chu Fengmian's opinion, the three great ancestors in the unblemished realm were not much different from ants. Chu Fengmian's attack was enough to easily kill them. Chu Fengmian made a grabbing motion in the air and grabbed 3 empty rings from the bloody mist, which then fell into Chu Fengmian's palm. As for the blood essence of the 3 great ancestors, they were directly devoured by Chu Fengmian. Nevertheless, for such ordinary great ancestors, even if Chu Fengmian devoured them, it would not be of much help to him. In order for Chu Fengmian to advance, he at least needed to devour the blood essence of a ruler. Even so, even if he had the blood essence of a ruler, he had to give it to the divine tree. At the moment, the divine tree's growth was more important than Chu Fengmian's growth. There's a lot of wealth in the empty rings of these great ancestors. Oh, they've actually accumulated so many extraordinary items that can be devoured. They should be devouring and refining them when they're preparing to break through. Chu Fengmian opened the empty rings, and a smile finally appeared on his face. There were many extraordinary items in the empty rings of the 3 great ancestors, which were just right for Chu Fengmian to devour and refine. Of course, Chu Fengmian did not stand on ceremony. He directly took out countless extraordinary items and condensed an incomparably huge vortex above his head. All of these mystical items fell into the vortex and were devoured by Chu Fengmian into his body, continuously refining them. It seems that if I want to break through, I must find some treasures. Or else, even if I kill 100 great ancestors like them, I won't be able to break through another level. Chu Fengmian couldn't help but sigh. The essence blood of these 3 old ancestors, in addition to all the wealth in their empty rings, was just a drop in the bucket for Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian had to obtain a huge treasure in order to take the opportunity to break through. Of course, his first thought when he came to the House of Storms this time was to obtain the real treasure in the House of Storms. Boom! At this moment, a deafening sound suddenly resounded from the House of Storms. Along with the sound, a rainbow-colored ray of light suddenly soared into the sky from the north of Chu Fengmian. A strange phenomenon in the world. A treasure must have appeared. Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered as he thought to himself when he saw this scene. A strange phenomenon suddenly occurred in the House of Storms. It must mean that something had happened. It was very likely that it was information about the appearance of a treasure. However, the appearance of this strange phenomenon might not only be the appearance of a treasure, but also the arrival of danger. Danger and opportunity coexisted. If one wanted to obtain a treasure, there was also the risk of death. Let's go and take a look. Chu Fengmian did not hesitate at all. He moved his body and directly turned into a ray of light, flying directly toward the place where the strange phenomenon occurred. Riches and honor were found in danger. Of course, Chu Fengmian did not care about any danger. No treasure in the world could be obtained so easily. A little danger was far from enough to scare Chu Fengmian away. Chu Fengmian flew all the way in the House of Storms. He also saw many martial artists flying in the same route as Chu Fengmian. It seemed that they were all attracted by the strange phenomenon in the world. In front of Chu Fengmian, there were a total of more than a dozen martial artists. It was a majestic group of people. These people were wearing the same clothes. They seemed to belong to the same force. Each of them carried a cyan spiritual sword on their back. Tianjin sect martial artists. Chu Fengmian was able to recognize the identities of these warriors with a single glance. Now, these Tianjin sect martial artists were flying all the way, surrounding a young man like stars surrounding the moon. This young man's strength was not strong. He was only at the peak of the life and death realm. However, his status was extraordinary. Obviously, his identity was extremely noble. The countless patriarchs around him stood obediently by his side, as if they were protecting him. Oh, he actually dares to come to the House of Storms alone? The moment Chu Fengmian saw this group of Tianjin sect disciples, they also noticed Chu Fengmian's presence. The young man standing in the center of the group frowned when he saw Chu Fengmian. A mere immortal realm brat has sneaked into the House of Storms. His luck is not bad. The young man glanced at Chu Fengmian and said, "Go capture him. We are still short of a scapegoat in the House of Storms. Capture him and let him pave the way for us." Yes. Hearing the young man's order, the surrounding Tianjin sect ancestors nodded. Two of them flew out of the crowd and flew toward Chu Fengmian. Suddenly, the two Tianjin sect ancestors appeared in front of Chu Fengmian. They blocked Chu Fengmian's path. What do you mean by this? Chu Fengmian's lips curled into a cold smile when he saw the two appear. Chu Fengmian, had not killed many people. Now, people with no eyes came to provoke him. "Brat, our young master wants to see you. Come with us." One of the ancestors looked at Chu Fengmian and said coldly. His tone was full of command. Chapter 906. Your young master wants to see me? I don't think I know your young master. I have something else to do, so please step aside. Chu Fengmian said calmly. Chu Fengmian wanted to get to the place where the strange phenomenon occurred as soon as possible. He didn't want to waste time with these Tianjin sect members. But now, these two people had no intention of letting Chu Fengmian go. "Of course you don't know our young master. It's your honor that he wants to see you. Hurry up and come here." The patriarch of the Tianjin sect said coldly when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. "Let me tell you, our young master is a big shot in the Tianjin sect. Forget it. Don't waste time talking nonsense with this guy. Let's just subdue him and take him to the Tianjin sect." One of the patriarchs of the Tianjin sect looked at Chu Fengmian and said fiercely, "Boy, I'll give you one last chance. Come with us obediently, or let us subdue you and take you away. It seems that the two of you don't want to step aside today." Chu Fengmian's eyes gradually turned cold. He didn't want to waste any more time. "Since that's the case, you can all die." Chu Fengmian's eyes were filled with killing intent. When dealing with these Tianjin sect members who provoked Chu Fengmian, there was only one result. They all had to die. Attack! Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, the two patriarchs of the Tianjin sect moved at the same time and attacked Chu Fengmian. Like the three patriarchs Chu Fengmian met before, they were both patriarchs of the unblemished realm. But the moment they attacked, it was obvious who was stronger. The patriarchs of the Tianjin sect were indeed more powerful than the patriarchs of the other sections. Suddenly, countless dazzling spiritual swords flew out of their sheaths from their bodies. They surrounded Chu Fengmian and turned into a sword formation, trapping Chu Fengmian within. A total of 1,000 spiritual swords formed a sword array, which was similar to Chu Fengmian's black mysterious sword array. Any other progenitor would feel a chill running down their spines upon seeing this. However, Chu Fengmian wasn't afraid at all. His expression didn't even change. He was extremely calm. It was as if Chu Fengmian didn't even put this kind of method in his eyes. "Looks like there are quite a lot of people who want to die. Then, all of you can die." Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered. Chu Fengmian had never shown mercy when killing his enemies. All of a sudden, Chu Fengmian's spiritual power burst out, and an imposing aura soared into the sky. Above this imposing aura, Chu Fengmian looked like a raging ancient battle dragon. Raging war dragon. Chu Fengmian's hands formed into claws and slashed forward. The thousand-sword array was torn apart by Chu Fengmian's claws. Countless spiritual swords hit Chu Fengmian's hands and were shattered. When these spiritual swords landed on Chu Fengmian's body, even the blades were directly shattered. He actually broke the sword formation. What a strong physical body. The two patriarchs of the Tianjin sect were surprised when they saw Chu Fengmian tear apart the sword formation and break out of it. It was difficult for any patriarch to break this sword formation alone, but now, Chu Fengmian, a mere patriarch of the longevity realm, had torn it apart so easily. In particular, the blades of the spiritual swords were directly shattered when they hit Chu Fengmian's body. His physical body was so strong that it was terrifying. I don't believe that this boy's physical body is harder than our blades. The two patriarchs of the Tianjin sect suddenly unsheathed their spiritual swords. The patriarchs of the Tianjin sect must have practiced the mysterious sword Tao. Anyway, the young master only wants him as a scapegoat. Let's cut off his limbs first. Anyway, he can recover with a little elixir. Kill. Suddenly, countless sword lights appeared and filled the sky. The sword chi broke through the air and slashed toward Chu Fengmian with extreme speed. These countless sword lights weren't fatal, but they were enough to cut off Chu Fengmian's limbs. If a warrior didn't have limbs, he wouldn't be able to struggle even if he had great strength. Then he condensed his four limbs. For a martial artist at Chu Fengmian's level, it would only take a breath for him to recover. However, a breath was enough to do a lot of things. You dare to use a trivial swordsmanship in front of me? Chu Fengmian said disdainfully when he saw this swordsmanship. The truly mysterious swordsmanship of the Tianjin sect was just SOSO in Chu Fengmian's eyes. What's more, these patriarchs couldn't practice the truly mysterious swordsmanship. This kind of swordsmanship was just showing off in front of an expert. Chu Fengmian moved his finger and pointed out a wisp of spiritual power. With a point of his finger, all the swords in the sky shattered into pieces. He broke the spiritual swords with one finger. This kind of thing could only be seen in legends. Only a few experts with unparalleled swordsmanship could reach such a realm. How is this possible? How can this person's sword intent be so powerful? I don't believe that an unknown kid can have such strength. The two Tianjin sect patriarchs were in disbelief when they saw this finger break the spiritual swords. They suddenly attacked again and slashed out countless sword lights, all of which were aimed at Chu Fengmian. Still struggling? Chu Fengmian's eyes showed some impatience. Suddenly, Chu Fengmian attacked. His feet moved, and the escape light was extremely fast. He rushed in front of the two Tianjin sect patriarchs in an instant. Suddenly, he clenched his fists and punched at the two Tianjin sect patriarchs. The countless spiritual swords condensed by the two patriarchs were all shattered by this punch. These two punches hit the chests of the two Tianjin sect patriarchs at the same time. The bodies of the two Tianjin sect patriarchs were under great pressure from this punch. Their bodies began to shatter little by little. In the next moment, their bodies began to collapse and explode, turning into a cloud of blood mist. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and took away the blood essence and empty rings of the two patriarchs. Then, without further ado, he turned into an escape light and flew in the direction of the worldly anomaly. The person these two patriarchs are protecting is the grandson of a Wushang ancestor of the Tianjin sect. To be called a Wushang ancestor, he must be at least a figure in the immortal realm. Chu Fengmian flew all the way, exploring the memories of the two Tianjin sect patriarchs. From these memories, Chu Fengmian knew the identity of the young man. Ji Tian, the grandson of a Wushang ancestor of the Tianjin sect, had a high status. This group of patriarchs came to protect Ji Tian. Chapter 907. This person's identity is a bit tricky. A Wushang old ancestor, it's not easy to provoke him. After probing the two old ancestors' memories, Chu Fengmian also understood the young man's identity. Ji Tian's identity was indeed very sensitive. To be able to get more than a dozen Tianjin sect old ancestors to protect him, Ji Tian was definitely highly valued by the Wushang old ancestor. Even the Tianjin sect, an old ancestor was not a cabbage. At most, there were only a few hundred of them, which old ancestor wasn't a person of high status. They were willing to protect Ji Tian only because of the Wushang old ancestor behind him. If Chu Fengmian killed Ji Tian, he would definitely provoke the Wushang old ancestor behind Ji Tian. But it doesn't matter. So what if I provoke a Wushang old ancestor? As long as he provokes me again, I'll kill him all the same. Chu Fengmian's eyes were incomparably cold. With his character, he had never been afraid of anything. In Chu Fengmian's dictionary, there was not a word of fear. Flame Heaven Lake. Since Ji Tian is going to the Flame Heaven Lake, it seems that this should be the place where the anomaly appeared. Otherwise, he wouldn't order these old ancestors to go together. Chu Fengmian thought to himself, from the memories of the two Tianjin sect old ancestors, Ji Tian was going to the Flame Heaven Lake. The Flame Heaven Lake was one of the most dangerous places in the House of Storms. It seemed to be a huge lake. However, what was in the pond was not water. Instead, it was extremely hot flames. No one had explored what was in the Flame Heaven Lake. But now that such an anomaly had appeared, it was very likely that it was the light of the birth of a treasure. In any case, Chu Fengmian had to go there. While thinking, Chu Fengmian increased the speed of the escape light. Looking at the Flame Heaven Lake from afar, one could see a monstrous sea of fire. The moment he got close to the Flame Heaven Lake, Chu Fengmian felt a strange feeling. It was as if there was something hidden beneath the countless flames beneath the Flame Heaven Lake. It was this thing that attracted Chu Fengmian. But in the Flame Heaven Lake, there were only extremely pure flames. At a glance, it was pure and flawless. However, Chu Fengmian could deeply feel the terror of these flames. These flames were even more terrifying than Chu Fengmian's dragon flame. The legendary flame was the flame of the nine heavens. The flame above the nine heavens was extracted from the nine heavens by Venerable Kanglin in ancient times. This Flame Heaven Lake was actually one of Venerable Kanglin's pill furnaces. Of course, this pill furnace was much more terrifying than any pill furnace in the nine regions. Even a patriarch wouldn't be able to get close to it. Each level of the nine heavens divine flame was more terrifying than the previous one. Chu Fengmian looked from afar. He could sense that even if Chu Fengmian used all his strength, he might not be able to charge into the Flame Heaven Lake. Oh, this glow? Chu Fengmian swept his gaze over the Yin Tian Lake. Suddenly, he saw a ray of light soaring into the sky from the Yin Tian Lake. Chu Fengmian happened to be near the seven-colored light, and suddenly realized that the seven-colored light seemed to be able to resist the heat of the Flame Heavenly Lake. In the vicinity of the seven-colored light, Chu Fengmian could no longer feel the heat of the Flame Heavenly Lake. Using this light, it seems like I can go deep into the Flame Heavenly Lake. Chu Fengmian slowly approached the light. Suddenly, Chu Fengmian felt an incomparably powerful suction force. The multicolored light firmly sucked Chu Fengmian's body and directly brought him into the blazing Heavenly Lake. What's going on? Chu Fengmian felt the world spinning in front of him. Now, there were countless scorching flames in front of him. This was the Flame Heavenly Lake. However, the seven-colored sunglow extended all the way into the seven-colored sunglow and turned into an extremely unique space. The seven-colored light had already isolated the terrifying flames in the Flame Heavenly Lake. It was impossible to feel the heat from the lake. "It's you?" Chu Fengmian hadn't finished observing the surroundings when a surprised voice suddenly sounded. There were a total of 5 people standing in front of Chu Fengmian. All of them were dressed in red robes, and the one leading them was a graceful woman. Luo Shi. Chu Fengmian looked in the direction of the voice. This woman was Luo Shi, the charming demon supremacy of the Six Paths Demon Gate. When Chu Fengmian saw Luo Shi outside, he naturally knew that Luo Shi must have come to the House of Storms. Now, it seemed that Luo, she must have been attracted by the seven-colored light and the unusual phenomenon of heaven and earth. However, when she saw Chu Fengyan, Luoxi's expression was obviously more surprised. She didn't know that Chu Fengyan had come to the House of Storms. Moreover, Luo, she already knew that Chu Fengyan had killed the charming demon supremacy and the battle demon supremacy. Moreover, Chu Fengyan had also fought with the demon emperor. How dare a brat call the supremacy by her name? Hearing Chu Fengyan's words, an ancestor of the Six Paths Demon Gate suddenly shouted angrily at Chu Fengyan. "Old man, where did you come from? If you continue to spout nonsense, you will die." Chu Fengyan's eyes flashed coldly. There was actually someone who dared to scold him? Chu Fengyan's spiritual energy suddenly condensed, and he was about to attack in the next moment. "Shut up, Luo," she suddenly scolded. However, she wasn't scolding Chu Fengyan, but the ancestor who had just spoken. After scolding the ancestor, Luo, she hurriedly turned her head and looked at Chu Fengyan with a smile. "Young Master Chu, long time no see. How about you let him go on my account this time?" Hearing Chu Fengyan's threat, the four ancestors who were originally standing behind Luo, she looked extremely disdainful. He was just an old ancestor of the longevity realm, and he actually dared to threaten them? However, Luo, she knew that Chu Fengyan had always been a man of his words. Since Chu Fengyan had spoken, Luo, she didn't doubt that Chu Fengyan wouldn't dare to kill in front of him. After all, Chu Fengyan had dared to kill a supremacy of the Six Paths Demon Gate in front of the Demon Emperor. With such arrogance, how could he not dare to kill a mere ancestor? "Since Miss Luo, she has spoken, I'll spare his life. Kneel down, and I'll forgive you for your sins." Chu Fengyan slowly made his move without raising his head. The ancestor who had just scolded Chu Fengyan suddenly felt an incomparably great pressure. His knees went soft, and he knelt in front of Chu Fengyan. Such an ancestor of the Six Paths Demon Gate couldn't withstand the pressure of Chu Fengyan's wave of his hand and knelt on the ground. Chapter 908. Damn it! The old ancestor of the Six Paths Demon Gate didn't even have time to react before he fell to the ground. His knees buckled under the immense force, and he fell to his knees. How noble was the status of an ancestor! However, before he could get angry, he saw Chu Fengyan's cold eyes and didn't dare to say another word. Just a moment ago, he could already feel that Chu Fengyan's strength was far beyond his own. If he dared to get angry now, he would be easily suppressed with a wave of his hand. The other three patriarchs of the Six Paths Demonic Gates were also dumbfounded by this scene. They looked at Chu Fengyan with fear in their eyes, but they also felt lucky that they didn't say anything. Otherwise, they would be the ones kneeling now. "Young Master Chu, what brings you here?" Luo, she looked at Chu Fengyan and asked with a smile. She seemed to be ignoring the fact that the ancestor was forced to kneel on the ground by Chu Fengyan. Although Luo, she, and Chu Fengyan could be considered enemies, Luo, she still had a faint smile on her face. Judging from their conversation, one would think that Chu Fengyan and Luo, she were friends who hadn't seen each other for a long time. "Miss Luo, she, you don't have to waste your breath here. Everyone knows what we are here for. We are all here for the treasures of the House of Storms, right?" Chu Fengyan said casually. He didn't want to continue arguing with Luo, she. They came to the Inferno Lake because of the rainbow-colored light. Their purpose was simple. They were all here for the treasures of the House of Storms. "Oh, if that's the case, young Master Chu, are you going to compete with me for the treasures?" The corners of Luo, she's mouth curled into a faintly discernible smile. "However, as you can see, there are no treasures in the Inferno Lake. Let me judge for myself whether the treasures are here or not," Chu Fengyan said coldly. Although Chu Fengyan came to the Inferno Lake, he still didn't find any traces of the so-called treasures. The attraction to Chu Fengyan was still in the Yintian Lake. Additionally, as Chu Fengyan entered the Yintian Lake, the influence of this attraction on Chu Fengyan became greater. This meant that there was indeed something hidden in the Inferno Lake that was still attracting Chu Fengyan. However, that thing wasn't here, but somewhere deeper in the Inferno Lake. "Treasures? I think the two of you don't need to look for any treasures. You're already dead after entering the Inferno Lake. Why are you still looking for treasures? A few figures suddenly walked out of the rainbow-colored light in front of Chu Fengmian's eyes. Chu Fengmian was surprised by the appearance of Chu Fengmian's. Even Chu Fengmian's eyes did not notice. For emperors, Chu Fengmian's SS. The four figures who came out were all rulers. They were the four rulers from the 7 major sects who had entered the House of Storms. Sky Emperor, Emperor Ning, Emperor Li, Emperor Bao. It's you guys. Luo Shi's eyes flashed with killing intent when she saw the four figures appear. The patriarchs of the 6 Paths Demon Gate behind her suddenly became nervous. Charming Demon Sovereign, I bet you didn't expect that you would still fall into our trap. One of the middle-aged men was the Sky Emperor. He looked at Luo Shi and the others and laughed. We have been waiting here for a long time. It seems like even you, Charming Demon Sovereign, are blinded by greed. Charming Demon Supremacy, surrender yourself. 6 Path Demon sects have been running amok in the central region. Today is the day to eliminate you. Another emperor, Emperor Li, said coldly. I heard that Charming Demon Sovereign is not only the sovereign of the Charming Demon sect, but also the fiancé of the 6 Paths Demon sect's Demon Emperor. Let's capture this girl and enjoy her before killing her. A vicious voice sounded. It was Emperor Ning. Just like his name, he had a ferocious expression and his eyes were filled with lust. So, this strange phenomenon is also a trap set by you guys? Luo, she looked at the 4 emperors with a hint of panic in her eyes. If she was outside and met with danger, she could still summon the experts of the 6 Paths Demon sect. However, in the House of Storms, it was an independent space. Even the strongest martial artist could not break through the barrier of the House of Storms. It could be said that the 4 emperors came up with this plan when they saw Luo Shi enter the House of Storms. In the House of Storms, any martialist who still wanted to fight for the House of Storms would choose to fight for it when there was an anomaly that had suddenly appeared. Luo Shi was not surprised at all. She would definitely fight for it. The trap was almost flawless. No one would be able to detect the danger within. Sky Emperor said with a smile. That's right. If I didn't do that, how could I have lured you here? Do you think you can kill me? Luo Shi's eyes were filled with cold, killing intent. Now that things had come to this, it was impossible for her to leave even if she wanted to. She might as well fight to the death. Of course, as long as we set up a seal, the rainbow light around you will disappear. When that happens, you will be in a sea of fire. Let's see if Charming Demon Sovereign has the ability to escape from the Blaze Heaven Lake. Emperor Li said lazily. He held a 7-colored pearl in his hand. The 7-colored radiance on the pearl was exactly the same as the 7-colored radiance in the surroundings. Boundary dividing pearl? Chu Fengmian looked at the rainbow pearl and suddenly understood why the rainbow light was able to separate the flames around them. The boundary dividing pearl was one of the supreme treasures of the desolate ancient sect. It was able to separate the flames and create a unique space. It seemed that the boundary dividing pearl was used to open up the surrounding flames. However, the boundary dividing pearl's effect was limited. It could only open up the flames in the middle of the Blaze Heaven Lake. If it was the flames at the bottom of the Blaze Heaven Lake, it would be countless times hotter than the flames here. No method could open it up. However, this was more than enough to set up a trap. They even used a supreme treasure like the boundary dividing pearl. Looks like this has been planned for a long time. Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered. He was also thinking about the situation before him. Chapter 909. The 4 sovereigns were obviously not here to target Chu Fengmian. But this time, they managed to trap Chu Fengmian here. Looks like I'm a little unlucky this time. Chu Fengmian could not help but sigh. At this time, it would not be easy for Chu Fengmian to escape unscathed. At least the 4 sovereigns had no intention of letting Chu Fengmian go. Looks like I can only go all out this time. Chu Fengmian had already made up his mind. He could only go all out. Boundary dividing pearl. Luo Shi's face turned extremely ugly when she saw the 7-colored pearl in Emperor Li's hand. The boundary dividing pearl was in the hands of Emperor Li. This also meant that as long as Emperor Li was willing, he could make the 7-colored radiance in the surroundings disappear. she would fall into a sea of fire in an instant. The four sovereigns and the sea of fire and the flame heavenly lake were definitely enough to force her into a desperate situation. There was almost no chance that she could escape alive. Don't talk nonsense with this woman. Let's kill the rest of them and suppress this woman. This woman has the most miraculous, innate body, the divine body of seduction. Whoever can obtain this woman will gain incomparably great benefits. Emperor Ning looked at Luo, she greedily, and laughed. Everyone, let's attack together. Let's kill the rest of the ants first. In the eyes of the sovereigns who had transcended life and death were indeed no different from ants. They did not put them in their eyes at all. All right, let's kill these obstructing ants first, the Sky Emperor said casually. Suddenly, the Sky Emperor made his move. As soon as he made his move, the space was frozen together like water, turning into ice. Of course, the mystery behind it was much more profound than water turning into ice. It was enough to freeze space. The Sky Emperor's name came from his mastery of the path of space. The path of space was illusory. Even the majority of the sovereigns could not comprehend it. They knew very little about it, let alone how to guard against it. For these sovereigns, they did not even have the chance to struggle. The patriarchs of the Six Paths Demon Gate behind Luo, she were sealed in an instant. As the space was sealed, they stood still and could not move an inch. After sealing those sovereigns, the Sky Emperor's gaze fell on Chu Fengyan. Although Chu Fengyan was not from the six demon sects, since he had broken into this place, the Sky Emperor naturally would not let him go. The Sky Emperor waved his hand, and the space around Chu Fengyan began to condense. He wanted to seal and suppress Chu Fengyan along with this space. The moment the Sky Emperor made his move, Chu Fengyan's eyes were filled with killing intent. As expected, these sovereigns would not let him go. Break to break, just as the space around Chu Fengyan began to condense, a golden light flashed from Chu Fengyan's body. Waves of dragon's might were immediately emitted. The space that was about to was to break. 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 Chu Fengyan's body rushed out of the layers of seals in an instant. 2. Out you're that the Sky Emperor was shocked when he saw Chu Fengyan break through the barrier. His space seal was something that even sovereigns would not be able to break easily, let alone an immortal realm old ancestor. In his opinion, Chu Fengyan was just an old ancestor who had entered by mistake. Killing him would not be a big deal since he was not from the seven great sects. However, the Sky Emperor could feel that Chu Fengyan's strength was definitely not an ordinary immortal realm old ancestor. Kid, who are you? I don't think there's anyone like you in the central region. The Sky Emperor looked at Chu Fengyan and sneered. You don't look like someone from the six demon sects. However, such a young sovereign. No, you must have changed your appearance on purpose. The Sky Emperor stared at Chu Fengyan and laughed out loud. Chu Fengyan, it's you. I heard that you're extremely arrogant and dare to come to the central region. I didn't expect you to come to the House of Storms today. What? Who is that? Chu Fengyan? This kid is Chu Fengyan? The Sky Emperor's voice attracted the attention of the other sovereigns. Chu Fengyan. This name was a thorn in the side of the seven great sects. In the returning ruined sky, Chu Fengyan had killed countless geniuses from the seven great sects. Those who could enter the returning ruined sky were all geniuses nurtured by the seven great sects. Now that Chu Fengyan had wiped them out, the seven great sects would not be able to catch their breath for decades. Chu Fengyan, I didn't expect to meet you here. You've wreaked havoc in the divine tree secret realm. Today I'm going to kill you. I'm going to bring your head back to the desolate ancient sect. The murderous intent in Emperor Li's eyes was even more intense. The last time Chu Fengyan appeared in the divine tree secret realm, he had snatched the Gyakuro fruit. According to the rumors, he had even snatched a precious treasure from a Wushang ancestor. This infuriated the Wushang ancestor. Anyone who killed Chu Fengyan would receive a huge reward. Even for a sovereign, the reward from the Wushang ancestor was incomparably precious. Die, brat. As Emperor Li spoke, he charged towards Chu Fengyan. Compared to killing the charm demon sovereign, killing Chu Fengyan was more important. Killing Chu Fengmian would not only be able to exchange for rewards, but also because Chu Fengmian had countless treasures on him. As long as he killed Chu Fengmian, these treasures would belong to him. Emperor Li, this kid has also killed many of our Tianjin sect's disciples. It won't be easy for you to kill him alone. Seeing Emperor Li attack, the Sky Emperor also moved and rushed towards Chu Fengmian. There were many different opinions about how many treasures Chu Fengmian had on him. However, the Ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword and the Battle Dragon Treasure Carriage were the treasures of the 9 regions. Moreover, Chu Fengmian had the mysterious sword formation on him. It was even rumored that Chu Fengmian had the Beimang Palace on him. With so many treasures, the Sky Emperor wanted to get his hands on them. Emperor Li, Sky Emperor, you guys don't have to fight anymore. Let's join forces and kill this kid first. We'll split the treasures on him equally. Anyway, this kid has so many treasures on him, it's definitely enough for us to split. Emperor Ning, you go and deal with the Charmed Demon Sovereign. After we kill this kid, we'll help you suppress the Charmed Demon Sovereign. Emperor Bao, who was covered in fat and did not look like a warrior. Instead, he looked more like a businessman as he slowly opened his mouth. Chapter 9-10. Although Emperor Bao looked normal, he was actually the most terrifying one among the 4 sovereigns. Chu Fengmian could vaguely feel that Emperor Bao's strength was even stronger than the remaining 3 sovereigns. Hearing Emperor Bao's words, Sky Emperor, Emperor Li, and the rest looked at each other and nodded. All right, let's kill this guy and split his belongings equally. However, I want his head. Emperor Li nodded. All right, let's do it. Sky Emperor, Emperor Bao, and the rest agreed. Emperor Bao's figure moved and rushed towards Chu Fengmian. Emperor Ning laughed and looked at Luo Shi. Suddenly, he threw a palm strike towards Luo Shi. Countless exchanges began. The 3 sovereigns were now filled with killing intent as they rushed towards Chu Fengmian at the same time. The situation was extremely dangerous. Chu Fengmian, go to hell. You've killed countless geniuses from the 7 major sections. Even if you die 10,000 times, it's still not enough. Emperor Li shouted crazily. The energy in his body was like the explosion of a scorching sun. Suddenly, countless flames emerged from his body. He threw a punch in the air, and it turned into a huge fireball that fell from the sky. Sky Emperor, Emperor Bao, and the rest also took action. Sky Emperor took action and immediately sealed the space around Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian did not even have a chance to dodge. When Emperor Bao made his move, a long river appeared in front of him. This long river was densely packed with countless spiritual weapons. 1,000 Treasure River. There were more than 10,000 spiritual weapons of different colors, and they all turned into a long river. This was the supreme spiritual weapon created by Emperor Bao, the 1,000 Treasure River. Among them, there were more than a dozen heaven-grade spiritual weapons. Although none of the heaven-grade spiritual weapons could compete with the Ancestral Dragon's Supreme Sword and Battle Dragon Treasure Carriage. However, with more than 10 heaven-grade spiritual weapons and more than 10,000 spiritual weapons, the power of the 1,000 Treasure River was extremely terrifying. Chu Fengmian stood on the spot, and he could feel the great pressure. A great danger was approaching Chu Fengmian. Not good. This power is too terrifying. Even Chu Fengmian was a little flustered. The 3 rulers attacked like thunderbolts. They charged toward Chu Fengmian with thunderous momentum. He didn't want to give Chu Fengmian any chance at all. He wanted to kill Chu Fengmian immediately. Chu Fengmian had escaped from the 7 great sects countless times. Therefore, this time, the 3 rulers attacked with absolute killing moves. They did not want to give Chu Fengmian any chance of survival. Ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword, Ancient Dragon Emperor Body. In an instant, Chu Fengmian stopped hesitating. The 66,000 drops of Ancient War Dragon's blood essence burned on Chu Fengmian's body at the same time. Faced with 3 rulers, if Chu Fengmian were to hide his strength, he would simply be courting death. Even if Chu Fengmian unleashed his full strength, he might not be a match for the 3 rulers in front of him. In the Heavenly Feather Divine region, Chu Fengmian had been able to kill 2 supremacies because he had the advantage of being in the Heavenly Feather Divine region and being supported by the Cloud Feather Palace. However, in the Blaze Heavenly Lake, Chu Fumian had fallen into the enemy's trap and was completely passive. He could only resist with all his might. He did not even have a chance to counterattack. No, I must take the initiative to attack. Otherwise, if I keep resisting, I'll be killed by them no matter how tough my body is. In an instant, Chu Fumian made a decision in his heart. Layers of dragon scales began to form on Chu Fumian's body, wrapping around his entire body. Chu Fumian's body began to show a golden color. In an instant, a war dragon claw condensed in front of Chu Fumian. Boom! Suddenly, the three forces collided with each other at the same time. The war dragon claw began to shatter in the face of this force. More than half of the force bombarded Chu Fumian's body. The countless dragon scales on Chu Fumian's ancient dragon emperor body began to shatter one after another. His entire body became a bloody mess. However, in the next moment, when the force weakened, a burst of vitality suddenly appeared from Chu Fumian's body. Chu Fumian's injuries were instantly healed. At a glance, Chu Fumian did not even seem to have suffered any injuries. Oh, a little guy in the immortal realm is actually able to withstand the combined attack of the three of us? The Sky Emperor, Emperor Li, and Emperor Bao were surprised to see that Chu Fumian was still alive after being bombarded with a single move. The combined attack of the three of them was so powerful that even an emperor would die without a doubt. However, Chu Fumian was actually able to survive. What appeared on his body seems to be the supreme body refining technique of the Dragon Clan. He condensed the ancient Dragon Emperor body and withstood more than half of the pressure. Moreover, his vitality is extremely terrifying. It seems like this kid has more opportunities than we imagined. The Sky Emperor looked at Chu Fumian and slowly said. After exchanging blows with Chu Fumian, he was now able to see through Chu Fumian's foundation. Who cares about the ancient Dragon Emperor body? No matter how tough this kid's body is, he's just a little guy in the immortal realm. Let's kill him 100 times, 1,000 times. Let's see how long he can withstand. Emperor Li said in disdain. Emperor Bao, who was standing at the side, nodded his head. The three sovereigns gathered their spiritual energy once again and prepared for the next attack. If they couldn't kill Chu Fumian once, they would try a second time and a third time. In the end, Chu Fumian wouldn't be able to withstand the attack and would be killed. Damn it, we can't let the three of them continue to work together. It's too terrifying when the three of them work together. Although Chu Fumian managed to withstand the combined attack of the three of them, Chu Fumian knew how much power he had to withstand. Even the divine tree that grew in Chu Fumian's body was shaken, and a few of its roots were broken. If it wasn't for the protection of the divine tree, Chu Fumian would have been killed by the previous attack. Even if Chu Fumian continued to resist, he would only die a slow death. He had to take the initiative and seize the opportunity. Sword danced across the sky. Chu Fumian held the ancestral Dragon Supreme sword and flew up in an instant. His sword slashed towards the Sky Emperor. The Sky Emperor was the weakest amongst the three sovereigns. Pick the soft persimmon and pinch it. Furthermore, the Sky Emperor's Tao of Space was extremely troublesome for Chu Fumian. If Chu Fumian's space was sealed at the critical moment, he could only take the attack head-on. If Chu Fumian wanted to kill someone, the first person he wanted to kill was the Sky Emperor. Chapter 9:11. Ever since Chu Fumian broke through, he had yet to display his true strength. When he was chased by the Wushang old ancestor in the Divine Tree Secret Realm, Chu Fumian could only run for his life. In the Heavenly Feather Divine Domain, Chu Fumian killed the other two sovereigns with the help of the Cloud Feather Heavenly Palace. This time, Chu Fumian finally displayed the strength that he had been accumulating. The moment Chu Fumian grasped the ancestral Dragon Supreme sword, a resounding dragon roar resounded from his sword. The sword intent on his body was fully displayed. The monstrous sword intent soared into the sky. The sword intent was extremely sharp. The current Chu Fumian looked like a sharp divine sword that had just been unsheathed. No one dared to resist the sharpness. Sword danced across the sky. Chu Fengmian suddenly waved his sword, and the sky was filled with sword shadows. The sword intent that filled the sky was just to buy time. But Chu Fengmian's real target was the Sky Emperor. Chu Fengmian's body flickered, leaving only a shadow on the spot. His body was extremely fast, and he rushed towards the Sky Emperor in a single leap. Suddenly, he slashed out with his sword. An ancient bronze mirror appeared in front of the Sky Emperor. This ancient bronze mirror was his defensive measure. Chu Fengmian's sword slashed on the bronze mirror, and countless spiritual energies collided. The Sky Emperor's body was sent flying in an instant. Countless cracks had appeared on the ancient copper mirror in front of him. It was on the verge of collapsing and was on the verge of shattering. This is what a terrifying sword light. The Sky Emperor's eyes were filled with disbelief, and there was a lingering fear in his heart. The speed of the sword light just now was simply beyond his imagination. Not only him, even the other two sovereigns, Emperor Li and Emperor Bao, were unable to react in time. They had never thought that Chu Fengmian would suddenly burst out with such a terrifying power. It was almost equivalent to a killing blow. If it wasn't for the ancient bronze mirror that had been protecting the Sky Emperor all along, the Sky Emperor would have died. The Sky Emperor might have even fallen from that sword. What a pity! Chu Fengmian sighed in his heart. The Sky Emperor did not even have the time to react to the sudden burst of his sword light. It was so unpredictable that even ghosts and gods could not detect it. However, Chu Fengmian didn't expect the Sky Emperor to have such a life-saving measure. The ancient bronze mirror was also a heavenly spiritual tool. It had always been hidden by the Sky Emperor's side, and appeared when he was in danger, and blocked Chu Fengmian's sword. There was only one such opportunity. Once, it would be troublesome if he didn't succeed this time. If he wanted to kill the Sky Emperor again, it would be many times more difficult. Let's fight. Chu Fengmian's eyes was full of fighting battle. Chu Fengmian had the ancient twos had the same personality to the ancient dragon bloodline. Mine was thought battle. This was the most difficult battle he had ever faced, but it was also a battle he had to win. On the body that. Emperor Li and Emperor Bao's eyes were filled with shock. Even now, they were still immersed in Chu Fengmian's sword. Is Chu Fengmian really an immortal realm expert? Such a terrifying sword light, it's so fast. This person's strength is on par with us. If we're not careful, even we'll be killed by him. An immortal realm old ancestor. In their eyes, Chu Fengmian was even worse than an ant, an existence that could be easily squashed. Who would have thought that Chu Fengmian could burst out with such terrifying strength? Even the Sky Emperor almost lost his life because of his carelessness. This kid's strength is getting more and more terrifying. This won't do. I must kill this kid today. I absolutely can't let him escape. Emperor Li's eyes were filled with fear. Before entering the returning ruined sky, Chu Fengmian was just a nobody. It could even be said that he didn't have the qualifications to be taken seriously by emperors like them. Although Chu Fengmian had slaughtered wantonly in the returning ruined sky, his strength at that time was only enough to defeat some life-saving realm and immortal realm old ancestors. Later, when Chu Fengmian went to the Divine Tree Secret Realm, his strength was already on par with the refined Heart Realm old ancestors. However, he still couldn't compete with the emperors. He was chased by Emperor Su and Ancestor Emperor and fled in panic. But now, in just a few days, Chu Fengmian's strength had grown to the point where he could be on par with them. This kind of growth speed was definitely beyond their imagination. Even in history, all the geniuses and monsters recorded in the ancient books had never been able to compare. Compared to Chu Fengmian's growth speed, they were much inferior. Today was their best chance. If they let Chu Fengmian go today, then, the next time they met Chu Fengmian, wouldn't Chu Fengmian be able to suppress them? Such a genius shouldn't exist in the 9 domains. Kill. Today, even if we have to use all our trump cards, we must kill this boy. Emperor Li, if you can't do it, kill this boy and charming demon sovereign together. Emperor Bao said coldly. His eyes were filled with incomparably terrifying killing intent. They still had a last resort to kill Chu Fengmian, which was the boundary dividing pearl. As long as they took back the pearl, It would be enough to let the flames in the Yintian Lake attack. Even if they didn't have the pearl, they wouldn't be able to resist the flames of the Yintian Lake. However, once Chu Fengmian died in the Sea of Flames, they wouldn't be able to obtain any of his opportunities. Chu Fengmian's ancestral dragon supreme sword, battle dragon treasure chariot, and the others would also fall into the Yintian Lake. This was a method of mutual destruction, but Chu Fengmian's aptitude had indeed reached the point where they had to kill him. All right, Emperor Li nodded. He could see how terrifying Chu Fengmian was from his eyes. An immortal realm old ancestor was enough to fight against the three of them together. How terrifying was his strength. Throughout the history of the 9 domains, there had never been such a terrifying genius. Moreover, Chu Fengmian was an enemy. Such a terrifying enemy must be killed. This person's sword intent isn't inferior to a supreme old ancestor. Let's seize his sword first. Chapter 9:12. The Sky Emperor shouted. As the emperor of the Tianjin sect, the Sky Emperor could naturally see how terrifying Chu Fengmian's sword was. The most important reason why Chu Fengmian was so terrifying was because of his unparalleled sword will. His swordsmanship had already reached the pinnacle. It was not inferior to the sword intent of a supreme ancestor. The best way to defeat Chu Fengmian was to seize his sword. Once a sword cultivator lost his sword, he would be like a tiger without its fangs. He would no longer be a threat. Good. Get the sword first. Emperor Bao and Emperor Li nodded their heads. As long as they seized Chu Fengmian's sword, Chu Fengmian would no longer have any power to resist and would be at their mercy. Several martial skills bombarded Chu Fengmian at the same time. These martial skills bombarded Chu Fengmian's right hand. At the same time, Emperor Bao's figure moved, and he suddenly grabbed the ancestral dragon supreme sword in Chu Fengmian's hand. He wanted to seize the sword directly. You want to steal my sword? The corners of Chu Fengmian's mouth turned cold. How could it be so easy to snatch his sword away? Just as Emperor Bao's hand was about to reach for the ancestral dragon supreme sword, a dragon's roar suddenly echoed from the ancestral dragon supreme sword. Behind the dragon's roar, another dragon's roar echoed. Following the dragon roar, an ancient war dragon suddenly condensed on the ancestral dragon paragon sword. The primordial war dragon roared and bit at Emperor Bao's hand. Damn it! Emperor Bao roared furiously. With a wave of his sleeve, the ancient war dragon was shattered into pieces. However, a wound as wide as a finger was left on his hand. A steady stream of energy was being absorbed from the wound. This primordial war dragon was transformed from Chu Fengmian's sword will. It could devour the power of Emperor Bao continuously. Although the amount of energy that was being devoured at every moment was not much, the moment Emperor Bao fell into a disadvantageous position, this energy would be extremely fatal. Damn it! Don't hold back. Just kill him. Emperor Bao roared furiously. The 1,000 treasure river in his palm suddenly swelled up, and the power of 10,000 spiritual weapons within it burst out in an instant. Countless amounts of essence blood spurted out from Emperor Bao's mouth. The essence blood was directly sacrificed in front of him. They turned into an endless stream of energy, all of which were added to the 1,000 treasure river. Suddenly, the power of the 1,000 treasure river increased exponentially. It descended from the sky and blasted toward Chu Fengmian. Kill! When Emperor Li and Sky Emperor saw this scene, they too spurted out large mouthfuls of blood essence. Both of them were sacrificing their blood essence in exchange for power. Everyone's aura was countless times more terrifying than before. The move of sacrificing one's essence and blood was extremely harmful to a ruler. It was enough to make them unable to recover for hundreds of years. Now, in order to kill Chu Fengmian, they were willing to pay any price and use all of their methods. These three forces bombarded Chu Fengmian from all directions. Chu Fengmian could feel the terrifying pressure and danger within. The surrounding space was torn apart, and Chu Fengmian's body was constantly shaking in front of these forces. He was even about to collapse from the pressure. These were the ultimate killing moves of the three rulers. They were not willing to pay any price. Infinite Sword. Chu Fengmian activated his sword intent to the extreme and integrated it into the ancestral dragon's supreme sword. He suddenly slashed with the sword. At this moment, the only thing Chu Fengyan could do was to resist with all his might. If this force bombarded Chu Fengyan's body, even if Chu Fengyan's body was supported by the divine tree, he would still be blasted into pieces. Boom! The two forces suddenly collided in the air. The vibration of the forces made Emperor Ning and Luo Shi, who were around them, involuntarily retreat. Even if it was the aftermath, if the two of them were to be affected, they would be in extreme danger. The aftermath was already so terrifying. Chu Fengyan, who was at the core of the force, was even more affected. Kacha! Kacha! Almost in an instant, Chu Fengyan's sword was broken by the power of the three rulers. No matter how strong Chu Fengyan's swordsmanship was, he was still in an extremely dangerous situation, facing the ultimate attacks of the three rulers. In the face of this power, his body was being shattered bit by bit. Chu Fengyan's battle dragon bloodline and his astonishing recovery ability were all displayed at this moment. Chu Fengyan's shattered body was reconstructed time and time again. Almost in every breath, Chu Fengyan's body was shattered and reconstructed tens of thousands of times. Just this pain alone was enough to make a ruler faint from the pain. Beads of sweat kept falling from Chu Fengyan's forehead as he resisted this power with all his might. What a terrifying power! Is the ultimate attack of the three rulers so terrifying? Chu Fengyan's eyes flickered. That surge of power had almost killed Chu Fengyan. Even so, Chu Fengyan could feel that the divine tree in his body had been injured. Even the divine tree could not withstand the impact of this power and was injured. It could be seen how terrifying this power was. Chu Fengyan's face was pale. This was the only time he was able to endure it. If it were to happen a second time, the divine tree in Chu Fengyan's body would be forcibly shattered. At that time, Chu Fengyan would also fall with the divine tree. He's not dead. The Sky Emperor, Emperor Bao, and Emperor Li were in disbelief when they saw that Chu Fengyan was still alive after taking their attacks head-on. It was already unbelievable that an immortal-level martial artist was enough for the three of them to join forces to fight against him. Now, the three of them had joined forces and sacrificed their essence and blood to use supreme killing moves, but they were all blocked by Chu Fengyan. Chu Fengyan, your aptitude is indeed unparalleled in the world. In the entire 9 regions, there are very few people who can be compared to you. Emperor Bao looked at Chu Fengyan and shook his head. Unfortunately, you must die today. If someone like you continues to live, you'll be a threat to the 7 great sections. Kill him. If we don't kill him, he'll definitely become a big problem. Emperor Li looked at Chu Fengyan with deep fear in his eyes. The more terrifying Chu Fengyan's aptitude was, the stronger their desire to kill him. Kill! As they spoke, the 3 rulers gathered their power again and attacked together. This was the 912th chapter. The title was wrong. Chapter 9:13. The 3 sovereigns attacked again. They did not stop and did not give Chu Fengyan any chance to attack. They wanted to take advantage of the situation and kill Chu Fengyan. The 3 sovereigns attacked again. The power that they unleashed was much more terrifying than the previous attack. Boom! The 3 forces merged into one in the air and turned into an extremely fast sword light. The appearance of the sword light caused the surrounding space to distort. This was the sword that represented the ultimate kill. Chu Fengyan could feel it. As long as the sword was going to kill Chu Fengyan would not be able to resist and would be killed immediately. All his fortunate encounters, his godly tree, even his battle dragon bloodline, and his outstanding recovery ability were unable to resist the power of the slash. It was an earth-shattering sword. In the air, it was already attacking Chu Fengyan. Damn it, I can't hide anything anymore. Emperor Jar out. Chu Fengyan's mind raced. At this moment, at this critical moment of life and death, Chu Fengyan could not hide anything anymore. The only thing he needed to do now was to survive. The only way to survive was to use the Emperor Jar. Bam! An ancient earthen jar suddenly appeared in Chu Fengyan's palm. This ancient earthen jar seemed to be in a dilapidated state. However, The moment this broken earthen jar appeared, it actually managed to disperse the spiritual energy that was crazily pressing towards them. In an instant, an extremely terrifying aura was emitted from the ancient jar. What is this? A heaven-grade spiritual weapon? No, no matter how powerful a spiritual weapon is, it can't possess such terrifying power. Seeing the ancient jar in Chu Fengyan's hand, Emperor Bao stared at it with his eyes wide open. Even with Emperor Bao's experience, it was his first time feeling such power. It was a power that was completely different from a heaven-grade spiritual weapon. No matter how powerful a heaven-grade spiritual weapon was, it was impossible for it to possess such power. An extreme path, immortal weapon. It's an extreme path, immortal weapon. Emperor Bao suddenly shouted after recovering from his shock. Retreat. What? An extreme path, immortal weapon? This kid has an extreme, immortal weapon. The Sky Emperor and Li Emperor didn't react for a moment, but after hearing Emperor Bao's words, they seemed to have suddenly reacted. In an instant, he hurriedly retreated. The legend of an extreme Dao celestial weapon had been circulating in the 9 regions for a long time. But just from the power emanating from the Emperor Jar, it was enough to see how terrifying the power of the Emperor Jar was. As for why Chu Fengyan had an extreme Dao immortal weapon, it was no longer their concern. Their minds were filled with thoughts of retreating and escaping. Trying to escape? When Chu Fengyan saw the 3 rulers retreating quickly, he could not help but sneer. All of you go to hell. Today, none of you can escape. As Chu Fengyan spoke, he poured all of his power into the mortal Emperor Jar. Suddenly, Chu Fengyan felt as if all the power in his body had been sucked out. However, the Emperor Jar was filled with spiritual power and suddenly began to vibrate. The ancient human emperor enlightened all living beings. Rumble. An extremely terrifying power was released from the Emperor Jar, turning into a shockwave. Although the 3 rulers retreated continuously, they were still enveloped by the power of the Emperor Jar in the next moment. Then, a series of explosions suddenly resounded. The explosions were densely packed. Emperor Bao's Million Treasures River was trying to resist the power of the Emperor Jar. However, even in the Million Treasures River, there were countless explosions. Countless spiritual weapons were blown up and destroyed on spot. The Million Treasures River was full of holes from the explosions. Puff, puff. The 3 rulers spat out a large amount of blood essence from their mouths. However, this time, they didn't spit it out voluntarily by sacrificing their blood essence. Instead, under the power of the Emperor Jar, their internal organs were shattered. They couldn't resist it and spat out a large amount of blood essence. The amount of blood essence they spat out was much more than what they had sacrificed. It would take at least a few thousand years. Even if the 3 rulers cultivated bitterly for countless years, they wouldn't be able to take another step forward. It might even shake their realms and cause their realms to drop. This kind of injury was almost fatal. Just a little bit more and they would have all died in the Emperor Jar. Sword breaking the heavens and earth. Chu Fengyan didn't hesitate at all. Just as the power of the Emperor Jar disappeared, he suddenly moved and rushed over. The battle dragon bloodline in Chu Fengyan's body boiled endlessly. The power of fortune was added to Chu Fengyan's sword. He had used all of his trump cards. Kill you while you're down. For the 3 rulers, the injuries caused by the Emperor Jar were enough to recover more than half in a few breaths. However, Chu Fengyan didn't intend to give them this opportunity. This was the best opportunity for Chu Fengyan. He had to let Chun Sheng chase after him. Chu Fengyan's figure rushed to the front of the Sky Emperor in an instant. The person he wanted to kill was still the Sky Emperor. The Sky Emperor's strength was the weakest, and he was the most severely affected by the Emperor Jar. Right now, the Sky Emperor's realm was somewhat unstable. It was even faintly showing signs of falling from the 7th step of the life and death steps to the refining heart realm. This was the best opportunity for Chu Fengyan. Breaking the firmament with his sword. Bang, 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 bang. Chu Fengyan's sword emitted a dazzling sword light that soared into the sky. Within this sword light, one could even hear the roar of a dragon. This time, It was Chu Fengyan's turn to kill. Damn it! Void of heaven and earth. When the Sky Emperor saw Chu Fengyan appearing in front of him in an instant, his face revealed a bit of panic. He suddenly activated his spiritual energy. His body merged with the surrounding space, as if he had become one with the surrounding space. He wanted to use this to dodge Chu Fengyan's sword light. However, this was already impossible. Chu Fengyan's eyes were still incomparably cold when he saw this. It was impossible to escape from his sword. In this world, no one could escape from his sword. Destroy. Chu Fengyan's sword fell. The space around the Sky Emperor was shrouded by the sword and shattered on the spot, breaking the firmament with his sword. Even the firmament would be broken, let alone the surrounding space. The surrounding space, along with the Sky Emperor's body, was directly shattered under Chu Fengyan's sword. Only a cloud of blood was left in the air. Chapter 9:14. The Sky Emperor was a peerless sovereign, but now he was killed by Chu Fengyan. He was crushed by Chu Fengyan's sword, leaving behind only his essence, blood, and bones. Now, 3 sovereigns surrounded Chu Fengyan, but Chu Fengyan did not die. Instead, he killed one of the sovereigns. It was earth-shattering. Even if this matter was spread out, no one in the entire 9 regions would believe it. Devour. Chu Fengyan waved his hand, and the Sky Emperor's essence blood was devoured by Chu Fengyan. Chu Fengyan did not refine it, but kept it in his body. All of it came to the front of the divine tree and was devoured by it. The Sky Emperor's essence blood was much purer than the essence blood of Battle Demon Supremacy, Lone Demon Supremacy, and the others. After the divine tree devoured the Sky Emperor's essence blood, a warm energy flowed into Chu Fengyan's body. Chu Fengyan could feel that the branches of the divine tree had become much tougher after devouring the Sky Emperor's essence blood. The injuries that Yangming suffered when he resisted the 3 rulers earlier had completely recovered. In fact, he was much more tenacious than before. After killing the Sky Emperor, Chu Fengyan's losses were all paid back. Finally, Chu Fengyan was able to catch his breath. The Sky Emperor is dead. Damn it, how could this kid be so terrifying? An extreme immortal weapon, such a legendary item. To think it would appear in this kid's hands. Emperor Li and Emperor Bao looked at Chu Fengyan with murderous eyes. The 3 of them joined forces, but Chu Fengyan found the opportunity to kill them. They even lost one of them. It was definitely a great loss. This kid has countless trump cards, and he's getting more and more courageous under the pressure. We have to kill him directly. Otherwise, we won't be able to kill him today. Emperor Bao shouted angrily. The energy in his body was rising crazily. At this moment, 3 incomparably huge vortexes appear behind him. Inside the vortexes, there were countless spiritual stones and mysterious items that were constantly burning in the vortexes. Thus, the endless power was added to Emperor Bao's body. Emperor Bao had already burned up all his wealth and turned it into his strength, fusing it into the wind of his fist. Boom! Just as Emperor Bao's fist was about to reach its peak, it suddenly landed. The target of this punch was Chu Fengyan. He didn't want to give Chu Fengyan any more chances. He wanted to kill Chu Fengyan with this punch. Even if he had to go bankrupt today, he must kill Chu Fengyan. It was the same for Emperor Li, who unleashed all the power in his body and attacked at the same time. Even Sovereign Ning, who had been fighting with Luo Shi, turned around at this moment and launched a killing blow at Chu Fengyan. The last time the 3 kings attacked, Chu Fengyan had used the power of the Emperor Jar. But this time, Chu Fengyan no longer had any trump cards to use. If that's the case, then let's fight. Even if Chu Fengyan dies, he must die in battle. Chu Fengyan roared. Fight! Fight to the death! Roar! 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 From behind Chu Fengyan, dragon roars suddenly resounded. Even the battle dragon bloodline in Chu Fengyan's body was roaring, wanting to fight Chu Fengyan. The ancient battle dragon could only die in battle one day. No matter how strong the enemy was, he must fight to the end. In an instant, 66,000 drops of ancient battle dragon blood essence were boiling in Chu Fengyan's body. It caused Chu Fengyan's body to suddenly grow countless scales, gradually changing causing Chu Fengmian to turn into an ancient battle dragon on the spot. The power of the battle dragon skill had reached its peak. Only by fighting to the death could the power of the battle dragon skill be fully displayed. It was an ancient war dragon that was over 10,000 meters long. It suddenly roared and soared into the sky. With his body, he forcibly resisted the attack of the three sovereigns. Fight! 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 The ancient battle dragon roared crazily, shouting the word fight, one after another. This represented Chu Fengmian's belief. The dragon scales on his body began to shatter in the face of the bombardment of the three sovereigns' power. However, the shattered dragon scales gradually formed a crystal-clear appearance. A flawless body. Chu Fengmian's body was transforming into a flawless body. The fourth step of the life and death steps, the flawless state, was to transform one's body into a flawless one. At this critical moment, Chu Fengmian's realm was even being promoted and broken through. Great! Chu Fengmian could also see that his body was about to change in the face of this life and death battle, and his realm was about to break through. Only in this kind of life and death battle could one's potential be truly stimulated. Therefore, when dealing with a peerless genius, if one could not kill him in one go, one could only let him fight more bravely. Break for me! Battle dragon dance in the heavens. Chu Fengmian roared in the air. From his side, his dragon scales all turned into the appearance of ancient battle dragons in the air. At this moment, tens of thousands of ancient battle dragons roared and soared into the sky. The dragons danced. He forcibly withstood the power of the three sovereigns. Fortunately, I just killed the Sky Emperor and recover my strength, so they can't join forces. Otherwise, I'll definitely die if the four sovereigns join forces. Chu Fengmian heaved a sigh of relief in his heart after withstanding the power. Just now, Chu Fengmian's power was about to be broken at any moment. Once his power was broken, Chu Fengmian would definitely die. Fortunately, the Sky Emperor did not join forces. Otherwise, even if Chu Fengmian really broke through and reached the flawless state, he would still be killed in the end. I have to go. I've used all my trump cards, and even my potential has been forced out. If this goes on, I'll die sooner or later. Chu Fengmian quickly thought of a way out. If they continued to fight to the death, even a real primordial war dragon would die in battle. Luo Shi, let's join forces and break out together. Chu Fengmian quietly sent a message to Luo Shi with his divine thought. At this time, only Luo Shi could join forces with Chu Fengmian. Luo Shi's strength was not inferior to an ordinary sovereign. If the two of them joined forces, there was a chance that they could break out. All right, let's go. In an instant, Luo Shi's divine thought was sent over. Almost without any hesitation, Luo Shi and Chu Fengmian's figures flew out together. They directly flew above the Yintian Lake. As long as they left the Yintian Lake, they would be free to fly. As long as they hid in one place, even the three sovereigns would not be able to find them. Chapter 9:15. Oh no, they're leaving. The attack just now had consumed more than half of the power of the three emperors present. Just as they recovered their power, they suddenly sensed that Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi were about to rush out of the Flame Heaven Lake. Once they left the Flame Heaven Lake, as long as the two of them hid in the vast House of Storms, the three emperors would not be able to find them. In this way, this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to catch them all in one fell swoop would be completely wasted. Emperor Li, attack! Emperor Bao shouted loudly. At this point, they no longer cared about the treasures and spiritual weapons on Chu Fengmian. As long as they killed Chu Fengmian, that was the most important thing. Realm Dividing Bead. Retrieve. The seven-colored bead suddenly appeared in Emperor Li's palm. Immediately, the seven-colored light around them disappeared. The three emperors took the lead and flew to the top of the Flame Heaven Lake along with the seven-colored light. Countless restrictions were suddenly set up on the Flame Heaven Lake. An inescapable net made it impossible for people to leave the Flame Heaven Lake. Damn it! Chu Fengmian cursed secretly. Without the protection of the seven-colored light, the heavenly fire in the Flame Heaven Lake had already surged toward Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi. Even spiritual power found it difficult to resist the heavenly fire. No matter how tough Chu Fengmian's body was, he could only be burned into charcoal in the heavenly fire. Emperor Li was ruthless enough. He would rather not have any of Chu Fengmian's spiritual weapons. Today, he would kill Chu Fengmian in the Flame Heaven Lake. An inescapable net had been set up on the Flame Heaven Lake. It was obvious that they had been prepared long ago. It seemed that the three emperors had been prepared beforehand. If they could not kill him on the spot, they would use the Flame Heaven Lake to do so. Compared to the three emperors, the heavenly fire in the Flame Heaven Lake was even more terrifying. As long as I get out alive today, I'll definitely kill these three people. Chu Fengmian shouted angrily in his heart. Almost no one had ever forced Chu Fengmian into such a hopeless situation. As long as Chu Fengmian could leave alive today, he would definitely kill all three of them. Not good. The heavenly fire is about to sweep over. Let's rush out quickly. Luo, she shouted anxiously from the side. The heavenly fire was already approaching the two of them. Chu Fengmian could feel the heavenly fire burning his cheeks. Under this kind of roasting, even a ruler would not be able to hold on for more than a minute and would be completely burned. Let's resist the surrounding heavenly fire first before making any further plans. Sword Emperor Palace. With a thought, Chu Fengmian summoned the Sword Sovereign Palace and sucked Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi into it. Oh, this was Beimang Palace. This brat actually brought the Northern Mang Palace out of the Northern Mang Academy. Above the Blaze Heaven Lake, Emperor Bao, Emperor Li, and Emperor Ning were looking at Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi. Seeing Chu Fengmian take out the Sword Emperor Palace, their eyes revealed a bit of surprise. However, most of them were sneers. So what if you have the Northern Mang Palace? It's impossible for a heaven-grade spirit artifact to withstand the heavenly fire in the Flame Heaven Lake. It's just a futile struggle. Emperor Bao's eyes were filled with pride. After setting up the trap for such a long time, it was just the right time to capture Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi in one fell swoop. Originally, they were only prepared to deal with Luo Shi alone, but they did not expect to encounter Chu Fengmian along the way, killing two birds with one stone. However, thinking of this, Emperor Bao's eyes revealed a bit of haze. In order to kill Chu Fengmian, the Sky Emperor had to die here. He had to pay the price of an emperor to kill Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi. However, as long as they could kill Chu Fengmian, it was worth it to pay such a huge price. It's just a pity that Chu Fengmian's countless spirit artifacts and the extreme great immortal weapon are completely destroyed. Emperor Li's eyes revealed a bit of pity. Chu Fengmian had countless opportunities on him, including the Ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword, the Battle Dragon Treasure Carriage, and the Emperor Jar that he just revealed. Now that Chu Fengmian had died in the Flame Heaven Lake, all of his spirit artifacts would be buried with him. Even if the Emperor Jar could withstand the roasting of the flames, it would eventually fall to the bottom of the Flame Heaven Lake. No matter how powerful a martial artist was, it was impossible to reclaim the Flame Heaven Lake. It's indeed a pity that the charming demon Sovereign died before we could enjoy her. Sovereign Ning licked the corner of his mouth. He had always desired Luo Shi, and now that Luo Shi had died in the Flame Heaven Lake, it was a pity for him. These three figures had been standing on the Flame Heaven Lake, sealing off the top of the Flame Heaven Lake. Even if Chu Fengmian wanted to rush out, it was impossible. In the Sword Sovereign Palace, Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi came to the Sword Sovereign Palace, finally escaping the roasting of the heavenly fire. They finally let out a sigh of relief. However, Chu Fengmian knew that this was only temporary. Even the Sword Sovereign Palace could not withstand the heavenly fire for too long. Yun Jian, can you withstand it? Chu Fengmian suddenly asked. No, young master. I can only withstand the heavenly fire for 2 minutes at most. Yun Jian's voice was heard after a while, and there was a hint of anxiety in his voice. Even the Sword Sovereign Palace could not withstand the heavenly fire for too long. 2 minutes. Hearing this, Luo Shi's face revealed a hint of joy, but now it completely disappeared. The Sword Sovereign Palace could only withstand it for 2 minutes. As long as these 2 minutes passed, she and Chu Fengyan would still die in the Flame Heaven Lake. The top of the Flame Heaven Lake has been sealed off by the three sovereigns. We can't break out. Chu Fengyan opened his spiritual consciousness and observed the Flame Heaven Lake. Above the Flame Heaven Lake, there was an inescapable net formed by spiritual energy. If Chu Fengyan entered it, he would only be courting death. There was no way he could break out. In this desperate situation, I can only fight for a chance of survival. Chu Fengyan thought of thousands of countermeasures in an instant, but only one had a chance of survival. Yin Jian, go to the bottom of the Flame Heaven Lake. Chu Fengyan said decisively. Even now, Chu Fengyan could feel that there was something at the bottom of the Flame Heaven Lake that was attracting him. This feeling could not be wrong. Clearly, there was another world at the bottom of the Flame Heaven Lake that was attracting Chu Fengyan. In this situation, he could only fight to the death and go to the bottom of the Flame Heaven Lake. The bottom of the Flame Heaven Lake was the place where the heavenly fire was the most terrifying. The ninefold heavenly fire was the most terrifying pure, young, heavenly fire at the bottom of the Flame Heaven Lake. Going to the bottom of the Flame Heaven Lake was no different from a dead end, but it was precisely this dead end that Chu Fengyan had to take. Chapter 9:16. In the Flame Heavenly Lake. The Sword Sovereign Palace was flying towards the bottom of the Flame Heavenly Lake at its fastest speed. The surrounding heavenly fire also gradually began to change color. Its power was countless times more terrifying than the heavenly fire just now. Each of the 9 layers of heavenly fire was more terrifying than the previous one. Even the first layer of heavenly fire couldn't be resisted by ordinary sovereigns. Not to mention the depths of the Flame Heavenly Lake. Sure enough, Chu Fengyan had been searching for this feeling in the Sword Sovereign Palace. The closer he got to the bottom of the Flame Heavenly Lake, the more Chu Fengyan could feel the attraction. Chu Fengyan's judgment was right. There must be something hidden under the Flame Heavenly Lake. The Sword Sovereign Palace was still flying. Now, the Sword Sovereign Palace could no longer resist the heavenly fire. Chu Fengyan, who was in the Sword Sovereign Palace, could feel the terrifying temperature. Here, Chu Fengyan would be roasted to death by the heavenly fire in less than 3 breaths of time after leaving the Sword Sovereign Palace. Here we are. Chu Fengyan felt that the heat of the heavenly fire had reached the extreme. This was the bottom of the Flame Heavenly Lake. The flames at the bottom of the Flame Heavenly Lake had lost their color. This represented the most terrifying, pure, young, heavenly fire among the 9 layers of heavenly fire. The colorless flame, pure, young, heavenly fire. Chu Fengyan's expression was also extremely nervous. Here, even the Sword Sovereign Palace could only hold on for 10 breaths of time at most. If Chu Fengyan wanted to find the secret of the Flame Heavenly Lake, he had to do it within these 10 breaths of time. His spiritual consciousness scanned the bottom of the Flame Heavenly Lake. Suddenly, a restriction appeared in front of Chu Fengyan's eyes at the bottom of the Flame Heavenly Lake. There's actually such a restriction at the bottom of the Flame Heavenly Lake. Chu Fengyan sensed that the restriction was located at the bottom of the Flame Heavenly Lake, but the surrounding pure young heavenly fire didn't burn it. Obviously, the owner of the restriction was the owner of the Flame Heavenly Lake, Venerable Kanglin. Venerable Kanglin actually left such a restriction at the bottom of the Flame Heavenly Lake. There must be other secrets behind this restriction. Chu Fengyan could feel that the attraction to him was coming from behind the restriction. Break this restriction. Chu Fengyan made a decision without hesitation. Chu Fengyan, what do you want to do? Luo, she also noticed the change in Chu Fengyan. She didn't know how Chu Fengyan had detected the restriction at the bottom of the Flame Heavenly Lake. But now this was his only chance. Leave the Sword Emperor Palace and break this restriction. After Chu Fengyan finished speaking, he left the Sword Emperor Palace. Chu Fengyan's body fell into the Flame Heavenly Lake, and he immediately felt the terrifying, pure, young, heavenly flame around him. The scorching, pure, young, heavenly fire was about to burn Chu Fengyan to ashes. Chu Fengyan hurriedly spread out his spiritual energy. He could also feel that his body was being eroded at every moment. Suddenly, another figure appeared beside Chu Fengyan. Luo Shi also left the Sword Emperor Palace and followed Chu Fengyan to the Flame Heaven Lake. She also felt the heat of the heavenly fire around her and hurriedly spread out her spiritual power. I'll help you. You attack the restriction, and I'll resist the pure, young heavenly fire. Without batting an eyelid, Luo Shi unleashed all of the spiritual energy in her body, transforming it into a barrier that enveloped both her and Chu Fengyan's body. At the bottom of the flame heavenly lake, even protecting oneself was an extremely difficult task, let alone protecting others. Luo Shi's spiritual power spread out, and she was under great pressure. Her face turned red. I can only hold on for 3 breaths. Hurry! Without waiting for Luo Shi to speak, Chu Fengyan had already unsheathed his sword. His natal sword, origin, and the power of creation were all integrated into the sword. Suddenly, the sword slashed towards the seal. Boom! When the sword struck the restriction, it suddenly shook, but only a few cracks appeared. This sword strike that contained the power of creation was unable to break the restriction. Sword break the firmament. Sword dance across the sky. Battle dragon claw. Invincible king's fist. In an instant, Chu Fengyan didn't know how many martial techniques and sword lights he had used. All of them bombarded the restriction. These waves of power made the restriction crack continuously, but it still couldn't break. Hurry! Hurry up! Break it quickly! Large beads of sweat kept falling from Chu Fengyan's forehead. In this Yin Tian lake, he suffered incomparably huge injuries at almost every moment. Luo Shi, who was beside Chu Fengyan, was in the same situation. Her body was constantly being eroded by the heavenly fire, and she was about to die. Go back to the Sword Emperor Palace first. Chu Fengyan didn't hesitate. He waved his hand and took Luo Shi back to the Sword Emperor Palace. At this time, the heavenly fire that Luo Shi had been resisting beside Chu Fengyan all this time burned toward Chu Fengyan. Chu Fengyan's body was gradually scorched and burned crazily. Ancient human emperor, enlighten all living beings. Chu Fengyan suddenly spat out a large mouthful of essence blood. It burned crazily and activated the power of the Emperor Jar again. Chu Fengyan had been able to activate the power of the Emperor Jar for several days, so he could only activate it once. If he wanted to activate it again, he would have to pay a great price. But at this moment, Chu Fengyan didn't care about the price. He burned his essence blood crazily to activate the power of the Emperor Jar. Suddenly, the power of the Emperor Jar burst out from the bottom of the flame heavenly lake. Boom! Boom! Countless explosions erupted from the restrictive formation. Crack! Suddenly, a loud noise rang out. This restriction was finally broken by the power of the Emperor Jar. Chu Fengyan's body grabbed the Sword Emperor Palace and rushed into the restriction almost instantly. Like a fireball, he fell into a palace. This palace was at the bottom of the flame heavenly lake. No heavenly fire could enter through the entrance of the restriction. It was like a completely different world. Chu Fengyan, how are you? In the Sword Emperor Palace, Luo Shi's figure appeared. She saw Chu Fengyan lying on the ground, unable to move. Chu Fengyan was now on the verge of death. His body had been completely burned by the heavenly fire. Even with the bloodline of the war dragon, it was difficult to repair it. Once again, he forcibly activated the power of the Emperor Jar, causing Chu Fengyan's internal organs to shake and shatter countless times. Now, even if Chu Fengyan wasn't a dead man, he was not far from death. Chapter 9:17. Fortunately, at least I managed to escape. Chu Fengyan lay on the ground, unable to move. He was already wholeheartedly circulating the power of the battle dragon while in an attempt to heal the injuries on his body. The battle dragon bloodline's amazing recovery power was gradually healing Chu Fengyan's body and slowly dissolving his injuries. It should be fine. As long as I don't die, my injuries can be healed, Chu Fengyan said slowly. However, before he could finish his sentence, he spat out a mouthful of blood essence from his mouth. His pale face made him look even more miserable. How are you? Luo, she looked a little nervous. She hurriedly injected spiritual energy into Chu Fengmian's body. At the same time, spiritual pills appeared in her palm and were all swallowed by Chu Fengmian. However, the medicinal power of these spiritual pills could not heal Chu Fengmian's injuries. Oh no, your 5 viscera and 6 bowels have been corroded by the heavenly fire. No spiritual pills will be able to heal your body now. Luo, she checked Chu Fengmian's body and said anxiously, with Chu Fengmian's current injuries, if it were any other warrior, they would have died long ago. Only Chu Fengmian, with his terrifying vitality, could still survive. However, Chu Fengmian only had 1 breath left. Chu Fengmian was still being corroded by the pure, yang, heavenly fire at every moment. After a while, Chu Fengmian would be burned by the heavenly fire sooner or later. Unless he fully recovers his spiritual energy at this time, he can get rid of the heavenly fire in his body. But how can he do it now? Luo, she looked at Chu Fengmian, who was almost unconscious, and couldn't help but mutter to herself. How could he fully recover his spiritual energy when he was seriously injured? It seemed like a simple method, but in reality, it was completely useless. No, it wasn't that there was no way. Luo, she had another way. Divine charming body. It was the most miraculous, innate divine body. Whoever could obtain the divine charming body for the first time would gain great benefits. Luo, she was able to become the lord of the charm demon tribe because of her divine charm in body. In the 6 demon sects, Luo, she was not only the lord of the charm demon tribe, but also the demon emperor's fiancée. She was waiting for the demon emperor to break through to the heavenly fate realm so that she could marry him. He's in this situation because of me. Luo, she looked at Chu Fengmian and muttered. If Chu Fengmian didn't save her, she would have died in the sea of fire. The heavenly fire, heavenly fire. Thinking of this, Luo, she's cheeks couldn't help but blush. Perhaps Luo, she had already fallen in love with Chu Fengmian. After a long moment of hesitation, Luo, she's eyes were filled with determination. She suddenly took off her clothes, revealing her enchanting body. The clothes on Chu Fengmian's body were all taken off, and the 2 bodies were entangled together in the palace. To Luo, to Chu, to be, to God die. After a long time, Chu Fengmian, who was lying on the ground, slowly opened his eyes. He had fainted under the corrosion of the heavenly fire. I'm not dead yet. Chu Fengmian had a premonition that he was going to die when he fainted. The corrosion of the heavenly fire had reached Chu Fengmian's 5 viscera and 6 bowels. No matter how strong Chu Fengmian's vitality was, he would still die. But now, Chu Fengmian had regained consciousness. Moreover, the pain of being burned by the heavenly fire had disappeared from Chu Fengmian's body. Chu Fengmian's aura was even stronger than before. What's going on? Chu Fengmian scanned Chu Fengmian's body with his spiritual consciousness. His eyes were filled with disbelief. His body had already completely recovered. Originally, it was extremely serious and impossible to recover from the injuries. But now, all of them had been completely healed. Even the heavenly fire, which was the most difficult to deal with, had recovered. It was unbelievable. The heavenly fire could only be dispelled by Chu Fengmian's full strength. But now, all of it had been dispelled while Chu Fengmian was unconscious. Even Chu Fengmian's realm had jumped 2 levels, reaching the 5th level of life and death realm, the divine martial realm. What's going on? My body. No, this power is... In Chu Fengmian's mind, he suddenly recalled the scene of 2 people making love. This scene was like a dream, but now it was incomparably clear. It's Luo Shi. Luo, she was the only one in the palace, and only her mesmerizing divine body was capable of doing this. Chu Fengmian suddenly sat up from the ground. Only then did he notice the naked figure beside him. The moment Chu Fengmian woke up, Luo Shi, who had been lying beside him, also opened her eyes. Seeing her naked body, she couldn't help but blush. A surge of spiritual power condensed into a long gown, covering her beautiful body once again. I didn't expect you to be the one who saved me. Chu Fengmian looked at Luo Shi with an unnatural expression. He didn't expect Luo Shi to save him at this time, and in such a way to save him. Thinking of the lingering feelings in the dream, Chu Fengyan's eyes revealed an unnatural expression. It seems that your injuries have all healed. Luo Shi saw that Chu Fengyan had woken up, and joy appeared in her eyes. But soon, her joy was suppressed, and she revealed a somewhat calm expression. This time, it's because of me that you fell into such a dangerous situation. This time, we're even. We don't owe each other anything. This time, after leaving the House of Storms, I'll return to the Six Paths Demonic Gate. From now on, we'll have nothing to do with each other. Luo Shi sighed and said. She was the fiancée of the Demon Emperor. It could be said that the Demon Emperor was the reason why she could become the Lord of Succubus Demon. Now that she was naked with Chu Fengyan, her charming divine body was crippled. If she returned to the Six Paths Demonic Gate, it would be a disaster. Today's matter would be completely over. From now on, they would have nothing to do with each other. It's very dangerous for you to return to the Six Paths Demonic Gate now. Chu Fengyan looked at Luo Shi and said slowly, There's no other way. Apart from the Six Paths Demonic Gate, I have nowhere else to go. Luo Shi's expression revealed a hint of sadness. She grew up in the Six Paths Demonic Gate. If she left the Six Paths Demonic Gate, where could she go? Come with me. Chu Fengyan looked at Luo Shi and suddenly said, Chapter 9:18. Come with me. Chu Fengyan's words were like a clap of thunder that exploded in Luo Shi's mind. What did you say? Luo Shi couldn't hide the shock on her face. She didn't expect Chu Fengyan to say something like that. Luo Shi was highly sought after in the Six Paths Demon Sects. She even became the lord of the charming demon sect. However, all of this was because of her divine body of charming Yin. No matter how magical the divine body of charming Yin was, it would only be useful for the first time. It would be meaningless once it was used on someone else. It could be said that the Six Paths Demon Sects nurtured Luo Shi as a cultivation vessel for the Demon Emperor. Without the divine body of charming Yin, Luo Shi would be meaningless. If she were to return to the Six Paths Demon Sects after being used by Chu Fengyan, she would be demoted to a slave even if she didn't die. However, she had no other choice. Without the divine body of charming Yin, she wouldn't be accepted no matter which faction she went to. This was because Luo Shi's identity was a huge problem in itself. Anyone who chose to be with her would be hunted down by the Six Paths Demon Sects. Even Chu Fengyan might not want this burden. Come with me and be my woman, Chu Fengyan said calmly. He looked at Luo Shi. You're my woman now. Don't even think about leaving and returning to the Six Paths Demon Sects. Luo Shi looked at Chu Fengyan and remained silent for a long time. She was forced to be with Chu Fengyan. However, at that time, she didn't care about anything else. In the end, she still saved Chu Fengyan. From the bottom of her heart, she still liked Chu Fengyan. At that critical moment, he chose to save her. Even if it was the Devil Emperor, at such a critical moment, he would probably abandon her and leave instead of saving her. All right. Luo Shi was silent for a while before she nodded gently. Her cheeks blushed again. Let's go and see what treasures there are in this palace. Chu Fengyan laughed. A drop of golden blood suddenly flew out from his fingertip and fell into Luo Shi's body. This is a drop of my life, essence blood. If you're in danger, it can protect you. You can also find me through it at any time. This drop of golden blood fused with Luo Shi's body, causing her power to increase even further. At the same time, Luo Shi could feel that this drop of golden blood was by her side. It represented Chu Fengyan and had always been protecting her. Let's go and see what the treasures of the House of Storms are. Chu Fengyan picked up Luo Shi, and his body flashed as he walked into the inner part of the palace. Inside the palace, one could see an incomparably huge rock at a glance. This rock was crystal clear in color. It was dozens of miles long and wide, making it extremely huge. An incomparably pure spiritual energy was constantly being emitted from the rock. Is this a saint-grade spirit stone? Such a large piece is actually a saint-grade spirit stone? Luo Shi glanced at the rock, and her eyes almost popped out of their sockets. This huge rock was actually a Saint-grade spirit stone. It was incomparably large. This piece of Saint-grade spirit stone could be exchanged for a huge amount of wealth. It was almost unimaginable. It was simply an astronomical figure. In the outside world, a small piece of Saint-grade spirit stone was enough to cause countless patriarchs and even sovereigns to fight over it. Even in the ancient cavern, there were very few Saint-grade spirit stones that could be found. But in the House of Storms, there was actually such a huge piece of Saint-grade spirit stone. It seems that this is indeed the treasure left behind by Venerable Kanglin. Chu Fengmian said, such a large piece of Saint-grade spirit stone could only be owned by someone like Venerable Kanglin who had already become an immortal. There's something on this Saint-grade spirit stone? Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered as he looked at the Saint-grade spirit stone. Suddenly, his figure moved and arrived on top of the Saint-grade spirit stone. On top of the Saint-grade spirit stone, there was a green-blue armor. Kanglin immortal armor? Chu Fengmian had just grabbed the cyan armor when a piece of memory suddenly appeared in his mind. It was the story of Venerable Kanglin who wore the Kanglin immortal armor and roamed the 9 regions. Later on, when Venerable Kanglin became invincible, the Kanglin immortal armor had been left in the House of Storms. This is actually Venerable Kanglin's protective armor. Chu Fengmian gasped. The Kanglin immortal armor was simply a spiritual weapon that was even more powerful than the ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword and the War Dragon Treasure Chariot. Even Dragon Emperor Yin paled in comparison to Venerable Kanglin. Dragon Emperor Yin and Chu Fengmian's master, the Master of Sword Dao, were both at the peak of the 9 regions. But they were not invincible in the world. Because of this, the Master of Sword Dao was besieged and killed by countless experts of the 7 major sections. Venerable Kanglin was truly invincible in the world. In that era, he looked down on everyone and was called Venerable Immortal. His protective armor was definitely a heaven-grade spirit artifact that had reached the pinnacle. It was not at the level of an extreme-grade immortal weapon, but it was definitely the most powerful heaven-grade spiritual weapon. Even an attack from an emperor couldn't shake it. Chu Fengmian recalled that when Venerable Kanglin was just an emperor, he was besieged by hundreds of emperors. He wore the Kanglin immortal armor and looked down on everyone. The full-force attack of an emperor bombarded the Kanglin immortal armor, but it was not damaged at all. Even an emperor couldn't shake this Kanglin immortal armor. It's really terrifying. Chu Fengmian couldn't help but sigh. The treasures left behind by immortal Venerable Kanglin were absolutely not ordinary. Whether it was the ridiculously large Saint-grade spiritual stone or the Kanglin immortal armor. If it was placed in the 9 regions, even the supreme old ancestors of the 7 major sects wouldn't be able to resist snatching it. It seemed that the rumor about the treasure in the House of Storms was true. It really did exist. But no one would have thought that the treasure would be hidden at the bottom of the Flame Heavenly Lake. One should know that even a supreme old ancestor would not dare to go deep into the Flame Heavenly Lake. If they were not careful, they would fall here. It was no wonder that no cultivator could find it even after it opened dozens of times. Under this coincidence, it was coincidentally obtained by Chu Fengmian. It could only be considered Chu Fengmian's luck. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and put the Kanglin immortal armor into his spatial ring. Chu Fengmian still hadn't figured out how to arrange the Kanglin immortal armor. Moreover, the treasures in the House of Storms were obviously not limited to this. There would be better treasures waiting for Chu Fengmian later. Chapter 919. As for this large piece of Saint-grade spirit stone, Chu Fengmian glanced at the Saint-grade spirit stone and suddenly unsheathed the ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword. He suddenly swung the sword and slashed at the center of the Saint-grade spirit stone. Immediately, a large piece of Saint-grade spiritual stone was split into 2 from the center. The Saint-grade spirit stone on this side is yours. Chu Fengmian looked at Luo Shi and said. At the same time, he opened the empty ring and put half of the Saint-grade spirit stone into it. Even with Chu Fengmian's divine pulse, it would take him several months to condense such a huge Saint-grade spirit stone. It was definitely a big fortune for Chu Fengmian. If Chu Fengmian hadn't just broken through and his foundation wasn't stable, he could immediately refine this saint-grade spirit stone and break through again. You're giving the other half to me? You don't have to share the treasure with me. After all, you're the only one who found it. Luo, she said hesitantly. You came to the House of Storms for Master Immortal Kanglin's treasure, right? Moreover, you're about to break through to the Heavenly Mandate Realm. These spirit stones are useful to you. Chu Fengmian said casually. He ignored Luo Shi and walked directly into the House of Storms. Luo Shi looked at Chu Fengmian's departing figure and sighed helplessly. She put the other half of the saint-grade spirit stone into the empty ring and quickly chased after him. The treasure of the House of Storms was obviously more than that. The feeling that had always attracted Chu Fengmian was not far away from here. Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi gradually walked into the depths of the palace. At a glance, Chu Fengmian saw another huge rock. It was another rock like a mountain. However, this rock wasn't a spirit stone. Sky crystal. This is a sky crystal. How can there be such a huge sky crystal? The moment Chu Fengmian saw the rock, he suddenly cried out. He was countless times more surprised than when he saw the saint-grade spirit stone. Sky crystal. This was a strange object with the purest spiritual energy in the 9 regions. It was enough to purify and strengthen a martial artist's body. Back in Beimang City's black market, Chu Fengmian had obtained a sky crystal the size of a fingernail. At that time, Chu Fengmian's body had been strengthened to an unimaginable level. Back then, the heaven crystal was only the size of a fingernail. However, the heaven crystal before him was the size of a mountain. It wasn't smaller than the spirit stone that Chu Fengmian had seen. Sky crystal? This is the legendary sky crystal? Luo Shi followed Chu Fengmian in. She didn't have much of a reaction when she saw the rock-sized sky crystal. However, when she heard Chu Fengmian's words, she couldn't help but open her mouth wide in shock. The sky crystal was a legendary item in the 9 regions. Among the countless items in the universe, it was considered extremely rare. Luo crystal, spirit stone crystal. Now, such a huge rock was actually an entire piece of sky crystal. A sky crystal the size of a fingernail was enough to cause countless experts to fight over it in the 9 regions. Yet this sky crystal was as big as a mountain. Luo, she felt a little dizzy. The treasures left behind by venerable immortal Kanglin were truly terrifying. They appeared one after another, causing people to faint from shock. That's right, it's a sky crystal. Chu Fengmian nodded. His tone was very sure. Compared to other people who had only heard of sky crystals, Chu Fengmian had obtained one and refined it, allowing his body to be close to perfection. Therefore, Chu Fengmian would never mistake this sky crystal. Such a piece of sky crystal is probably enough to strengthen my current body to the point of perfection. My body is already supported by the divine tree and is incomparably tough. If I add this sky crystal, Chu Fengmian was extremely excited. When he was fighting with the 4 rulers, he was able to resolve the crisis time and time again because of Chu Fengmian's powerful physical body. At that time, if Chu Fengmian didn't rely on the strength of his body, who knew how many times he would have died? As long as his physical body was strong enough, even if Chu Fengmian encountered a Wushang Great Ancestor, the Wushang Great Ancestor would not be able to kill Chu Fengmian. It would be enough for Chu Fengmian to escape unscathed. Star crystal? How can there be such a large piece of star crystal? Just as Chu Fengmian was in shock, Xing Xian's voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Xing Xian, who had been sleeping, suddenly woke up the moment he sensed the aura of such a large piece of sky crystal. It's impossible for such a huge piece of star crystal to enter the 9 regions. It's impossible to find such a large piece of star crystal in the entire 9 regions. Xing Xian couldn't help but mutter in Chu Fengmian's mind. Suddenly, he asked, "Where is this place?" The House of Storms. Chu Fengmian did not expect that the star crystal would actually force Xing Xian to wake up. One should know that Xing Xian had been sleeping most of the time. Even when Chu Fengmian encountered an incomparably huge crisis, he did not wake up. Now he suddenly woke up because of this piece of sky crystal. The House of Storms? Venerable immortal Kanglin? Such a large piece of star crystal. This person must have left the 9 regions. Xing Xian muttered to himself. There are only a few people who have truly left the 9 regions. Who exactly is this person? Xing Xian's voice became softer and softer. Even Chu Fengyan could not hear his words clearly. Don't refine this piece of star crystal yet. Put away first. Xing Xian's voice disappeared again after leaving these words. Although Chu Fengyan did not know what had happened to Xing Xian, he still put away the sky crystal according to Xing Xian's words. Xing Xian had always been a mysterious guy. Even now, Chu Fengyan could not figure out Xing Xian's origin. This confirmed Chu Fengyan's guess that Xing Xian must have come from outside the 9 regions. This sky crystal was also an item from outside the 9 regions. Such a large piece of sky crystal was definitely not from the 9 regions. The only explanation was that venerable immortal Kanglin had left the 9 regions to explore the extraterritorial realm. That was how he obtained such a huge piece of sky crystal. The mysterious extraterritorial realm. Chu Fengyan couldn't help but sigh. The extraterritorial realm had always been the object of countless legends. Chu Fengyan also yearned for it. He also wanted to leave the 9 regions one day and explore the mysterious extraterritorial realm. However, Chu Fengyan's current strength was far from enough. Only with sufficient strength would he have a chance to walk out of the 9 regions in the future. Chapter 920. Originally, Chu Fengyan wanted to refine the sky crystal directly. However, thinking of Xing Xian's words, Chu Fengyan put the sky crystal into his empty ring. Now that such a large piece of sky crystal had been put away, the palace seemed a little more spacious. Chu Fengyan swept his gaze around and saw a palm-sized tile at the place where the heavenly crystal was just now. What's this? Chu Fengyan's eyes were filled with joy and excitement when he saw the palm-sized tile. The Emperor Jar. It's a fragment of the Emperor Jar. Chu Fengyan recognized the palm-sized tile at a glance. It was a fragment of the Emperor Jar. When Chu Fengyan came to the Flame Sky Lake, he had been attracted to the fragment of the Emperor Jar. Now that Chu Fengyan had the fragment of the Emperor Jar in his hand, the fragment must have sensed Chu Fengyan's presence and deliberately attracted him here. I didn't expect to encounter a fragment of the Emperor Jar here. With this one, I've already collected 5 fragments of the Emperor Jar. Chu Fengyan was overjoyed. The Emperor Jar was divided into 9 pieces, and Chu Fengyan now had 4 fragments in his hand. If other warriors obtained the other 5 fragments, the Emperor Jar in Chu Fengyan's hand would be in great danger. It might even be taken away. Therefore, Chu Fengyan had never stopped looking for the fragments of the Emperor Jar. However, the 9 regions was so big that it was not easy to find the fragments of the Emperor Jar. Chu Fengyan did not expect to encounter a fragment of the Emperor Jar in the House of Storms. With the addition of this piece, Chu Fengyan now had a total of 5 fragments of the Emperor Jar. In this way, even if the remaining 4 fragments of the Emperor Jar were obtained by the same person, they would not be a threat to Chu Fengyan. On the other hand, Chu Fengyan had already obtained 5 of the fragments, which was enough to take the initiative. When the time came, he could directly snatch the remaining fragments of the Emperor Jar. When the 9 fragments were combined, it would be enough to reform the Emperor Jar, a true ultimate immortal weapon. Thinking of this, Chu Fengyan did not hesitate. He took a step forward and grabbed the fragment of the Emperor Jar. Without any obstruction, Chu Fengyan grasped the fragment of the Emperor Jar in his hand. Feeling the familiar spiritual energy on it, Chu Fengyan's lips curled into a smile. That's right. This spiritual power was indeed a fragment of the Renhuang Jar. Just like when Chu Fengyan grabbed the Kanglin Immortal Armor, a memory suddenly appeared in Chu Fengyan's mind. This memory should be the memory left by Venerable Kanglin. It was a passage of Venerable Kanglin's words. This item is called the Fragment of the Human Emperor Jar. It's an extreme immortal weapon from the ancient era. In my entire life, I've only obtained 1 fragment of the Human Emperor Jar. Even though it's just 1 fragment, it's still an extreme immortal weapon with boundless power. Senior Immortal Kanglin's words soon disappeared. It seemed that this Emperor jar was also obtained by Senior Immortal Kanglin by chance back then. Even Master Immortal Kanglin, who was invincible in the 9 regions at that time, had only obtained one of the fragments of the Emperor jar. He couldn't find the rest. It could be seen how difficult it was to find the fragments of the human Emperor jar. Chu Fengyan was now strong enough to obtain 5 of the fragments of the Emperor jar. It seemed that Chu Fengyan and the Emperor jar were fated to be together. Perhaps one day, the Emperor jar could really be reborn from Chu Fengyan's hands. "Come out, Emperor jar!" Chu Fengyan waved his hand, and the broken jar of the human emperor appeared in his palm. Since he had already obtained this fragment, Chu Fengyan naturally didn't delay any further. He directly refined it and merged it into one. The Emperor jar was originally a broken spirit weapon. Therefore, it didn't need Chu Fengyan to activate any spiritual energy. The fragment of the Emperor jar was integrated into the Emperor jar. It repaired one of the damaged parts. Every time he obtained a fragment of the Emperor jar, the power in it would increase exponentially. The Emperor jar was condensed from only 4 fragments. In terms of power alone, it was enough to surpass any heaven-grade spiritual weapon in the 9 regions. It had reached a level beyond heaven-grade spiritual weapons. If he could obtain all 9 fragments of the Emperor jar one day, Chu Fengyan would be able to see the true power of an extreme immortal weapon. As the fragments merged, the power contained in the Emperor jar grew stronger and stronger. Luo Shi, who was standing aside, felt a little frightened by this power. Luo Shi could sense that this power wasn't hostile to her. However, she was a little flustered when she saw the human Emperor jar. She saw with her own eyes that Chu Fengyan used the Emperor jar to force back the 3 sovereigns who had joined forces and seriously injured them. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she wouldn't have imagined that a spiritual weapon could reach such a terrifying level. "Is this an extreme, immortal weapon?" Luo Shi asked with uncertainty. Indeed, only the legendary extreme, Dao, celestial weapon could do this. However, this extreme immortal weapon was something that even the 7 great sects and the 6 demon sects had never possessed. Now that it had appeared in Chu Fengyan's hands, how could she believe it? "Yes, this is called the Emperor jar. It's an extreme immortal weapon. Yes, it's a broken extreme immortal weapon. There are a total of 9 fragments, and I only have 5. Chu Fengyan smiled when he heard Luo Shi's words. He didn't need to hide anything from Luo Shi. If Luo Shi still wanted to harm Chu Fengyan now, she wouldn't have chosen to save him back then. Of course, Chu Fengyan wouldn't hide anything from her. A broken extreme immortal weapon. In other words, it's only a fragment? Luo Shi's eyes were filled with shock when she heard Chu Fengyan's words. The power of the Emperor jar terrified her to the extreme. She felt that if she were to take the attack of the Emperor jar's power, she would die without a doubt. But such a terrifying power was actually still a fragment? Just how terrifying would a true extreme, Dao, immortal weapon be? Luo, she couldn't even imagine it in her mind. Just as Luo Shi's imagination was running wild, the fragments of the Emperor jar had completely condensed. At a glance, only the fragments on the surface seemed to be less, and the incomplete lines were also a little more complete. However, Chu Fengyan knew that every time a fragment of the Emperor jar was integrated, the Emperor jar would undergo a new transformation. The current power of the Emperor jar was probably several times more terrifying than before. Chapter 9:21. Putting the Emperor jar back into the empty ring. Chu Fengyan's face was full of smiles. Although it was extremely dangerous to come to the House of Storms this time, and he was almost forced into a desperate situation, it was really a blessing in disguise. He accidentally obtained the real treasure of the House of Storms. If it weren't for the 4 sovereigns who set a trap and led Chu Fengyan to the Blaze Sky Lake, Chu Fengyan would never have thought that the treasure of the House of Storms would be in the Blaze Sky Lake. Not only Chu Fengyan, but probably no one else would have thought that Senior Immortal Kanglin would actually leave the treasure at the bottom of the Blaze Sky Lake. Fortunately, there was a fragment of the Emperor jar in Senior Immortal Kanglin's treasure, which allowed Chu Fengyan to detect the existence of the treasure. Saint-grade spirit stone, Kanglen immortal armor, sky crystal, emperor jar fragment. I wonder what else is behind this. Chu Fengyan was looking forward to seeing what other treasures were hidden in the palace. The treasures left behind by senior immortal Kanglen were indeed not ordinary. Apart from the House of Storms, they couldn't be found anywhere else in the 9 regions. Let's go. Chu Fengyan looked at Luo Shi and said with a smile. Luo, she was almost a little dazed along the way. She had never imagined that there would be so many treasures. Luo Shi had been following behind Chu Fengyan, wanting to see what other treasures there were in the House of Storms. The two walked for an unknown distance in the palace. This palace was like a bottomless pit, as if there was no end to it. Chu Fengyan and Luo, she had already urged their escape light to hurry on, covering 100 miles in an instant. But even so, after walking for an hour, Chu Fengyan still hadn't reached the end. What's going on? Could it be that there are no more treasures in the House of Storms? But that's not right. If there are no treasures, there should be an end. Chu Fengyan's eyes flickered as he quickened his pace again. No matter what, he had to reach the end of the House of Storms today. After another 10 minutes, Chu Fengyan was walking through the palace when he suddenly stopped. What's wrong? Luo Shi asked curiously when she saw Chu Fengyan suddenly stop. The spiritual energy here is so strange. A strange look appeared in Chu Fengyan's eyes. Suddenly, streams of spiritual energy were emitted from the palace. However, in Chu Fengyan's eyes, this spiritual energy seemed a little strange. 2 different types of spiritual power, one ice and one fire, were unexpectedly transmitted from inside. What surprised Chu Fengyan was that these 2 spiritual energies, which were like fire and water, did not restrain each other at all. Instead, they complemented each other and formed an extremely unique power. This was something Chu Fengyan had never seen before. Looks like there's something else in the depths of this palace. Chu Fengyan couldn't help but quicken his pace. After another 10 minutes of walking, a large door finally appeared at the end of the palace. One side of the door was ice-cold blue, while the other side was fiery red. It looked extremely strange. The unique power of ice and fire was being emitted from behind the door. There are no restrictions on the door. Chu Fengyan carefully glanced at the door. When he saw that there were no restrictions on the door, Chu Fengyan slowly moved his hand and pushed the door open. In the House of Storms, Chu Fengyan had to be very careful. Against a figure like Venerable Kanglen, he had to be very careful. Even if he casually set up a restriction, it would be extremely fatal to Chu Fengyan. Chu Fengyan had to be very careful. The door slowly opened, and a gust of wind came head-on. This gust of wind swept up the spiritual energy of ice and fire. When it blew on Chu Fengyan's body, Chu Fengyan suddenly felt extremely hot. However, in the next moment, Chu Fengyan felt extremely cold. Even an ancestor would not be able to withstand the sudden change. No, the spiritual energy here is too strange. I can't bear it. Luo Shi's face was a little pale. She hadn't entered yet, but her spiritual energy was almost unable to bear it. Even if she activated her spiritual energy, she couldn't completely resist the heat and coldness. Then wait outside. I'll go in and take a look. Chu Fengyan glanced at Luo Shi and said, the stranger the spiritual energy emitted from the door, the more it was enough to arouse Chu Fengyan's curiosity. He also wanted to see what was hidden in the depths of this palace. You have to be careful. Luo Shi took a few steps back and retreated to a place where the gust of wind couldn't reach. She reminded him worriedly. Don't worry. Chu Fengyan smiled and stepped through the door. Behind the door was an incomparably huge open space. In the center of this open space, there were 2 huge rocks that could be seen at a glance. Of these 2 huge rocks, one was completely red, and a kind of colorless flame was constantly burning on it. Chu Fengyan could tell at a glance that this flame was actually the most terrifying of the 9 heavenly flames, the pure yang heavenly flame. Such a rock was actually able to emit the pure yang heavenly flame? Chu Fengyan's shock hadn't subsided yet. He looked at the other rock, and the shock in his eyes didn't diminish at all. It was even more exaggerated than before. The other rock had an icy blue color, and a chilling aura was emitted from it. When this chill came into contact with the pure, young, heavenly flame, it was actually enough to freeze the flame. The pure, young, heavenly flame was almost the most terrifying flame in the 9 realms. Now, the chill emanating from the other rock was actually enough to freeze the pure, young, heavenly flame. How terrifying was this cold? Between the 2 rocks, the pure, young, heavenly flame and the chill constantly clashed and reached a kind of balance. The strange spiritual energy that could be felt from the outside was emanating from between the 2 of them. What exactly is this thing? There's actually such a strange thing in the 9 realms. Even with Chu Fengmian's knowledge, he was momentarily stunned. He couldn't figure out the origin of these 2 rocks. A rock that could emit the pure, young, heavenly flame was not recorded in any of the ancient books in the 9 realms. Kid, where did you go this time? Why has the spiritual energy around you become so strange? Xing Xian's voice suddenly rang out in Chu Fengmian's mind. Then, Xing Xian's voice sounded as if he had seen a ghost, and he shouted in disbelief. Chapter 922. Heavenly Fire Divine Stone? Extreme Frost Divine Stone? Chu Fengmian's eyes flashed with confusion when he heard the 2 names from Xing Xian's mouth. Chu Fengmian's knowledge was second only to those old antiques who had lived for a long time in the 9 regions. He had lived 2 lives and read many ancient books. It could be said that he knew a lot about most of the mysterious items in the 9 regions. However, Chu Fengmian had never heard of these 2 names before. There was only one possibility. These 2 divine stones weren't from the 9 regions, but from the outer regions. That was why Xing Xian knew. Heavenly Fire Divine Stone and Extreme Frost Divine Stone. Who would put these 2 damned things together? Who did this? A madman. Whoever did this must be a madman. Xing Xian shouted wildly in Chu Fengmian's mind. This was the first time Chu Fengmian had seen Xing Xian lose his composure. In Chu Fengmian's opinion, Xing Xian was an extremely mysterious guy. His background and knowledge were far from what Chu Fengmian could see through. He didn't expect Xing Xian to have such a side. Are these 2 divine stones very dangerous? Chu Fengmian asked tentatively. Judging from Xing Xian's loss of composure, these 2 divine stones were definitely not ordinary items. Very dangerous? Xing Xian snorted coldly when he heard Chu Fengmian's question. Only then did he calm down and speak. Any one of these 2 divine stones contains enough power to easily kill you tens of thousands of times. No, it can even completely destroy the House of Storms. Any one of these divine stones can directly destroy the House of Storms. Chu Fengmian's eyes were filled with disbelief. Although the House of Storms wasn't comparable to the ruins of End Sky, it was still incomparably large. It would be very difficult for Chu Fengmian to explore it all by himself. Destroy the House of Storms? Even those Neverwither Realm ancestors wouldn't dare say such a thing. Now, any one of the 2 divine stones in front of him could actually destroy the House of Storms? If Chu Fengmian didn't believe Xing Xian, he would have thought Xing Xian was spouting nonsense. What? You don't believe me? If you don't believe me, you can try. But before that, you should send me to the 9 regions. I still need to wait for the next master. Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, Xing Xian curled his lips and said, I don't want to die in this damn place with you. Remember, stay away from these 2 damn things. Hearing Xing Xian's words, Chu Fengmian naturally understood. Even Xing Xian was so wary of them. These 2 divine stones were indeed extremely dangerous. Any one of them could destroy the House of Storms. However, this place was the treasure left behind by Venerable Kanglin. Why did Venerable Kanglin leave behind these 2 divine stones? However, only a madman would place these 2 divine stones together. Who would spend so much effort to leave these 2 divine stones here? Xing Xian's words revealed a bit of surprise. Not to mention the fact that it was extremely difficult to find these 2 god stones in the first place. It would take a lot of effort just to place these 2 god stones in the palace. Moreover, it would be even more difficult to balance the power of these 2 god stones. It was impossible for such a large amount of effort to be without a purpose. Chu Fengmian's thoughts were the same as Xing Xian's. Even Venerable Kanglin, who was invincible in the 9 regions, wouldn't be so bored as to put these two divine stones into the palace for no reason. Chu Fengmian scanned the surroundings of the two god stones. Suddenly, there seemed to be a flash of light in the air in front of him. Chu Fengmian abruptly grabbed it to take a look. This light was actually a jade talisman. This is? Chu Fengmian picked up the jade talisman and injected spiritual energy into it. Suddenly, an image appeared in Chu Fengmian's mind. This image was densely recorded with countless words. It was actually a technique. Chaotic Five Emperors technique? Chu Fengmian could faintly see that this technique was called the Chaotic Five Emperors technique. Looking down, Chu Fengmian was a little stunned. The first sentence of this Chaotic Five Emperors technique was that those without God's veins could not cultivate it. Otherwise, they would die without a doubt. It was exactly the same as the first sentence of the Battle Dragon technique. Those without God's veins could not cultivate it? What kind of technique was this? After Chu Fengmian recovered from his shock, he hurriedly continued to read. However, he found that the mystery of this Chaotic Five Emperors technique was simply beyond his imagination. The mystery of this Chaotic Five Emperors technique was countless times more mysterious than any technique that Chu Fengmian had seen in the Nine Regions. It was not inferior to the Battle Dragon technique in the slightest. In fact, it was slightly stronger. However, the Battle Dragon technique that Chu Fengmian had learned was only at the first level. If he could reach the second or third level, it would be on par with this Chaotic Five Emperors technique. Xing Xian, do you know about the Chaotic Five Emperors technique? Chu Fengmian hurriedly asked Xing Xian after he finished reading. This Chaotic Five Emperors technique could be said to be the same as the Battle Dragon technique. It was definitely not a technique that could be found in the Nine Regions. In the entire history of the Nine Domains, the Divine Pulse had always been a distant legend that cultivators without a Divine Pulse could not cultivate. If Chu Fengmian had not personally cultivated the Divine Pulse, he would not have believed that there were Divine Pulse cultivators in the Nine Regions. Chaotic Five Emperors technique? Isn't this the technique that the five lunatics cultivated? Is this the Chaotic Five Emperors technique recorded in your jade talisman? Xing Xian was slightly surprised when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. However, he still explained. This Chaotic Five Emperors technique is an extremely crazy technique. Although it is incomparably mysterious, it is really too crazy. Even if 10,000 people cultivated it, there might not be anyone who could cultivate it successfully. No wonder there are two divine stones here. It turns out that someone left behind the Chaotic Five Emperors technique. These two divine stones are related to the Chaotic Five Emperors technique? Chu Fengmian asked in surprise. He had only taken a cursory look and did not pay attention. You will know after you take a look. As for this Chaotic Five Emperors technique, it is up to you whether you want to cultivate it or not. After Xing Xian finished speaking, he did not say anything else. As for Chu Fengmian, he once again injected a surge of spiritual energy into the jade talisman. This time, he carefully read through the Chaotic Five Emperors technique. Time passed second by second. Chu Fengmian stood motionless at the same spot for a full 6 hours. This Chaotic Five Emperors technique is really crazy. After reading the Chaotic Five Emperors technique, Chu Fengmian finally let out a sigh of relief. His only comment was that it was crazy. Chapter 923. When Chu Fengmian had finished reading the Battle Dragon art, his evaluation was heaven-defying. A person could possess the Battle Dragon bloodline and possess the power to rival an ancient Battle Dragon. The Battle Dragon art was mystical enough to be called heaven-defying. However, Chu Fengmian's evaluation of the Chaos Five Emperors art was crazy to the extreme. It was no wonder that Xing Xian had told him that it was up to Chu Fengmian to decide whether to cultivate the Chaos Five Emperors art. It was because the Chaos Five Emperors art was simply too dangerous. It was extremely dangerous even for Divine Vein cultivators. As for ordinary cultivators, they didn't even have the qualifications to cultivate it. The first step to cultivating the Chaos Five Emperors art was to devour the 5 elemental wonders. The 5 elemental wonders that one had to devour weren't simple 5 elemental wonders, but the most terrifying kind. They were the 2 divine stones in front of him. Extreme cold divine stone. Heavenly flame divine stone. When the five elemental spiritual energy was condensed to the extreme, the five elemental divine stone would be born. The power of any one of these divine stones was enough to destroy the entire returning ruined sky. As a matter of fact, it was enough to destroy a huge area in the central region. The first step to cultivating the Chaos 5 Emperor's art was to devour one of the two divine stones in front of him, devouring such a terrifying power into one's body to refine it. The only word Chu Fengyan could think of to describe it was crazy. He didn't know how crazy a cultivator had to be to create such a frightening cultivation technique. However, although the Chaos 5 Emperor's art was crazy, the benefits one would obtain after cultivating it were also incomparably huge. The cultivation of the Chaos 5 Emperor's art could be said to be risking one's life. Once one could devour one of the divine stones, using the power of the divine stones to refine one's body was enough to transform any ordinary body into one that wasn't inferior to an innate divine body. Innate divine body was also an innate divine body. It was because the innate divine body was lodged in some cultivators' bodies that it became an innate divine body. Warriors with innate divine bodies had an innate advantage, whether it was in cultivation or fighting against enemies. The Battle Dragon bloodline that Chu Fengyan obtained from cultivating the Battle Dragon art was no longer obvious as his cultivation base increased. Any ruler, or even any life and death realm great ancestor, had obtained many fortuitous encounters. The reason why Chu Fengyan was still able to fight above his level was mostly because of his power of creation, his countless spiritual weapons, and his unparalleled sword intent. However, Chu Fengyan's body was still very ordinary and not an innate divine body. If Chu Fengyan could possess the innate divine body, his strength would increase countless times. Although the primal Chaos 5 Emperor's art was crazy, it was still extremely attractive to Chu Fengyan. Indeed, his body needed to be modified. If he had the innate divine body, even if the three rulers joined forces to deal with him, he was confident that he could fight them alone. This life of mine, since I've already been reborn, since I've already died once, there's nothing to be afraid of. Chu Fengyan thought to himself. In his previous life, he could be said to have been a coward. In this life, he would not have any fear. So what if it was dangerous? The art of the 5 chaotic emperors was not impossible to cultivate. As long as there was a chance of survival, Chu Fengyan would give it a try. I've decided to cultivate it. Chu Fengyan nodded and said in a deep voice, "You really want to cultivate the art of the 5 chaotic emperors' art?" Xing Xian heard Chu Fengyan's words and asked again, "You should be clear about the dangers of the art of the 5 chaotic emperors' art. However, I have to remind you that if you plan to cultivate it today, it will be much more dangerous than what is recorded." Xing Xian deliberately kept Chu Fengyan in suspense. Seeing that Chu Fengyan did not respond, he continued to speak. The art of the 5 chaotic emperors' art is indeed an extremely demonic cultivation technique. If you reach the great completion realm, you'll be able to devour all 5 elements of spiritual energy and become a chaotic divine body. However, this is only an illusory legend. Normally, when cultivating the art of the 5 chaotic emperors' art, you will choose to devour one of the 5 elements of spiritual energy. However, today, you can't devour either of these 2 divine stones. The power of these 2 divine stones of the 5 elements are now neutralizing each other, which is why you can come here. However, once you devour one of them, the other will definitely explode with all its power. At that time, you will definitely die. Xing Xian said slowly. Therefore, if you want to cultivate the art of the 5 chaotic emperors' art today, you must devour both divine stones at the same time. This is countless times more difficult than simply devouring one. You have to understand. After saying all this, Xing Xian did not speak again. Only Chu Fengyan could decide whether or not to cultivate the art of the 5 chaotic emperors' art. He could only tell Chu Fengyan the dangers. Devouring 2 divine stones at the same time. Devouring divine stones was an extremely dangerous action. It could be said that less than 1 in 10,000 people who truly cultivated the art of the 5 chaotic emperors would be able to survive. The possibility of devouring 2 divine stones at the same time was countless times lower. The power of the 2 divine stones was completely different. Once Chu Fengyan devoured them, if he was slightly careless, a fierce battle would definitely erupt in his body. At that time, Chu Fengyan would definitely die. Devouring 2 divine stones at the same time, after hearing Xing Xian's words, Chu Fengyan did not panic in the slightest. Instead, he revealed a cold smile. Then give it a try. The ice and fire divine body is countless times more powerful than a single divine body. Chu Fengyan's eyes suddenly opened. He had already completely memorized the art of the 5 chaotic emperor's art. He could devour the 2 divine stones at any time. Chu Fengyan slowly walked to the center of the 2 divine stones and slowly sat down. Suddenly, Chu Fengyan made his move. From the palms of his hands, a vortex suddenly appeared. The 2 vortexes directly devoured the 2 divine stones at the 2 sides. In an instant, the 2 divine stones that had been in the palace for an unknown period of time were suddenly uprooted. In the air, they turned into extremely pure spiritual energy, and all of it drilled into the vortex. The heavenly fire divine stone and the extreme frost divine stone were condensed from the purest 5 elements of spiritual energy. The first step Chu Fengyan took to activate the art of the 5 chaotic emperor's art was to scatter the 2 divine stones and turn them into the purest spiritual energy. Then, he devoured them all into his body. Boom! The moment the 2 divine stones entered Chu Fengyan's body, a trace of blood suddenly flowed out from the corner of Chu Fengyan's mouth. The moment the 2 balls of spiritual energy, 1 ice and 1 fire, were devoured by Chu Fengyan, they immediately began to collide violently. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.